investigation into online threats against an elected representative. He's expected to appear before Galway District Court this afternoon at 3 o'clock. 746 homes and businesses remain without power this morning following adverse weather last night. 354 are out in Derry and 168 are impacted in Killybegs. Major outages in Milford and Ballyrain have been repaired. Full details can be found on the ESB Power Check website. Meanwhile, the power outage may cause supply disruptions in Carrigart, Glen, Downings and Cranford. Crews are working to have water restored there as quickly as possible. However, it may take up to 3 to 4 hours after the restoration is completed for supplies to fully return. There's a concern that over 330 vacant teaching jobs at secondary school levels won't be filled. The Teachers' Union of Ireland is heading out at the Department of Education for failing to tackle the teacher shortage crisis. It says schools are now experiencing significant difficulty employing educators across the full breadth of subjects. TUI President David Waters says there's too many empty posts the government has failed to fill.
We've warned the government repeatedly that unless urgent action is taken, this is going to reach catastrophic levels. There's hundreds of empty vacancies at the moment. We'll have to see how that progresses. But this isn't something that is the government are being caught on the hop with. We have repeatedly over the last 10 years been telling them about this, and yet they just don't seem to want to act.
A new campaign's being launched to mark International Youth Day. The National Youth Council of Ireland is encouraging young people to share their personal stories on their website as part of their Youth Work Change Lives mission. It's also looking for an extra €15 million in budget 2025 to help improve youth work through the country. Communications manager with the NYCI, Daniel Meister, says the money would be well spent.
People listening can go on to youth.ie. They can sign up there to our call for an extra 15 million investment in young people and youth work. We'll be sending their signatures to every TD and every constituency throughout Ireland to make sure that that call for investment in young people and local youth services is heard loud and clear ahead of Budget 2025.
Looking now to weather, mostly dry with sunny spells, highest temperatures of 22 to 25 degrees. That's all for now from Highland Radio News. We'll be back again at 10 o'clock.
There's a killer in our midst, stalking us on rainy nights, striking on secluded rural roads, or in the middle of winter, down dark country lanes. This is a killer who terrorized the young and the not so young. It'll take your loved ones, and it's coming for you. In every season, speed is a serial killer. Stay safe by driving at a speed appropriate to the road and weather conditions. A message from the Road Safety Authority. Visit rsa.ie.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
And a very good morning to you. This is the 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio. It's Donal Kavanagh with you until 12 noon today. It's Monday, the 12th of August. And how did you sleep last night? I was sleeping absolutely fine until I'd say about 4:30, 25 to 5, when I was pretty much jumped out of the bed with a bang outside, and for the next 10-15 minutes there were some huge thundercracks in between about 4:30 and 5 this morning. One in particular, it was massive. I'd say very few people managed to sleep through it. Hope all is okay where you are, and your power is okay, your water is okay, and you haven't had any adverse impacts from those storms last night. It was a heavy one, but it's over now, and hopefully there's a few, as you've heard from Dunamary, there's a few places around the county where power outages are still being experienced, and there are some still water problems as well. Hopefully all that will be resolved reasonably quickly, and we will have a good day. This is the 9 till Noon Show. You can make contact with us with your priorities, your take on the day's news. You can text us on 086 60 25,000. That number good for WhatsApp messages as well. You can call us on 074 91 25,000. If you're outside the dialing area, it's 00353 7491 25,000. And it's Caroline producing and taking your calls, Shannon taking calls outside as well. And where would I be without those two wonderful ladies? Also, you can contact us via social media at Highland Radio on X, Highland Hub on Facebook. We're on all other wonderful types of social media as well, like Snapchat and Instagram. Not quite sure what we do on Snapchat, but we do something on it apparently.
An immediate
I do beg your pardon. Right, that was my fault. Always remember, bring back down the S2 button, Donal. And if you don't, that's the sort of thing that happens. Now, as I said, you can make contact with us. You can also use email. It's comments@highlandradio.com. We have lots to talk about on the show today, but as ever, your take and your priorities are what drive this show and make it special. Let's take a look at the newspapers this morning. It's Monday the 12th of August. Donegal News this morning. A shambles. Families anger at LUH over wristband error. Dion Meehan writes that the family of a 96-year-old woman have dubbed Letterkenny University Hospital a shambles after their mother was given the wrong wristband on arrival at the emergency department there. In a shown woman, Christina Beattie, who is 96, attended the hospital's emergency department after falling in at home, but the family have spoken at their shock after their elderly mother was given another patient's wristband. Also, HSC gives Ardra GP update. The HSC says it is actively recruiting for a new GP in Ardra. The current doctor, Dr. Sweeney, is due to finish up on August 22nd. That's less than a fortnight's time. I know a lot of people in Ardra concerned and wondering where they're going to go for their GP appointments in the days, weeks and months after that. So we'll be watching that one again with interest, and that situation there, it's getting really close to the deadline. Difficult to see really how a new GP could be in situ and ready to take over the day after Dr. Sweeney leaves, but we'll be watching that, as we say. Derry News this morning, obviously the front page is taken up with those violent scenes at Naylor's Row on Saturday night. Looking inside, an interesting story: major student accommodation boost for Derry City Centre. A key heritage-led regeneration project to provide student accommodation within the walled city was formally opened at Magazine Street. The project, led by the Inner City Trust and supported by UU and the Architectural Heritage Fund, has involved the restoration and refurbishment of 3 adjoining heritage buildings. It looks really good, actually. The facilities at 17 to 20 Magazine Street. And it's great to see that part of the city being regenerated, because it's a wonderful part of Derry, and I love walking up around that whole area. The whole area around sort of Plum Street up toward the cathedral. There's some lovely side streets there. There's some lovely little walks. Going off Bishop Street in both directions too. It's a great part of the city, in my humble opinion. Interesting too, the Truth Recovery, the Executive Office have an ad. It just happens to be on the same page as that story. The Executive Office has launched a public consultation on proposals to set up a statutory public inquiry for those affected by mother and baby institutions, Magdalen laundries, workhouses and their pathways and practices, along with a financial redress scheme. There's 2 consultations taking place in the City Hotel in Derry. They're both taking place on the 20th of August, and if my maths in my head is correct, that's tomorrow week. That'll be Tuesday, August 20th, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. And more details available at executiveoffice-ni.gov.uk consultations. And the closing date for all responses is the 19th of next month. But 2 consultation events at the City Hotel in Derry taking place tomorrow week on that Truth Recovery public consultation. Let's look at the nationals. Obviously, a lot of photographs of the Olympic closing ceremony last night, and what an interesting ceremony it was. Tom Cruise still doing his own stunts, it would appear. And now as soon as I saw the bike, funny, I was watching it with my daughter. As soon as I saw him get on the bike with a leather jacket, I thought, that's the opening scene to Top Gun. Although he was taking the bike a lot slower through the stadium than he was doing it actually in the film, and then riding onto the plane. It was the sort of thing you would expect Hollywood to do. And I must say, it was a lovely touch, putting the 3 Olympic rings over the 2 O's on the Hollywood sign. Really, really good. But looking inside the Independent, the story that caught my eye this morning, it's an interesting one. Horses are smarter than given credit for, new study suggests. Horses are much smarter than previously thought, scientists say, after a study showed they performed better than expected in a complex reward-based game. Researchers found that when denied treats for not following the rules of the game, the horses were instantly able to switch strategies to get more rewards. It shows the animals have the ability to think and plan ahead, something previously considered beyond their capacity. And that's according to scientists from Nottingham Trent University. Interesting one. So keep an eye on the horses. If there's a horse in the field outside, you wouldn't know what to be planning now. And maybe George Orwell got it wrong, because if you read Orwell, the pigs were the clever ones, and there was 2 horses. There was Boxer and there was the female horse whose name I've forgotten, and she was sort of quite vain, and Boxer was the loyal, steady workhorse, and maybe Boxer was a lot more credit than Orwell gave him credit for. Now, let's look at the Irish Daily Mail this morning. Fine Gael have had some success in recent times in getting high-profile people from Maria Walsh, who was well known outside of political circles, and more recently Nina Carberry, and they've got them both into the European Parliament. And now Fianna Fáil may be looking in the same direction. We had the retirement announcement of Deputy Eamon O'Queeve recently, and it now seems that TV celebrity Gráinne Seoige is eyeing up that seat being vacated by Eamon O'Queeve, and Gráinne Seoige has been canvassing Fianna Fáil delegates in a bid to get on the ticket for the forthcoming general election. It would be a stunning coup, the paper says, for Fianna Fáil to have Ms Seoige on an election ticket, and according to party leader members who met her last week, she is odds on to do just that. She was very well received by the delegates of Galway West, said a Fianna Fáil member. Now, the Galway races were on recently, and I know Fianna Fáil would traditionally have had a presence at the Galway races, and lots of discussions and important behind-the-scenes conversation take place at the Galway races. It could well have been in that context that Gráinne Seoige has been doing the necessary pressing of the flesh. Irish Times this morning, looking at the inside of the paper, and there's an interesting one. Limerick Hospital support team finds issue with patient flow. University Hospital Limerick has a level of acceptance about the intractable nature of overcrowding and believes that increasing bed numbers is the only solution, the HSE has been told. Now, we do know that, and if you, as I would do, we would look at the INMO's trolley watch figures every day that shows us how many people are admitted to the hospital but unable to get into beds because there aren't sufficient beds in the hospital. Now, sometimes Letterkenny can be in the top 3 or 4. It was actually number 2 one day last week. There was 49 awaiting beds in Letterkenny. But even on the day that there was 49 awaiting beds in Letterkenny, and that was number 2 on the national list, Limerick was number 1. It was 102 was the figure in Limerick. The numbers of people awaiting beds in Limerick is always way, way above any other area. I think I can think of a handful of occasions in the past maybe year and a half where perhaps one day Cork's been ahead of Limerick, another day Galway's been ahead of Limerick. And usually the top 5 are inevitably Limerick, Galway, Cork. Letterkenny is always there. Well, very often there or thereabouts. Letterkenny has this habit recently of sort of, it'll be 9 one day and 49 the next, and then back down to 6, and then possibly back up to 20. But Cork, Galway, Limerick, and to a lesser extent Letterkenny are hospitals that regularly feature on that list. And the HSE team that went in there have passed on a report to the Chief Executive, Brendan Gloucester, and they say the team doesn't believe that capacity is the only issue, but the management of patient flow is also a contributing factor. Now, discharges can be an issue, and we know that, and we've had these discussions up in this part of the world as well, that, I mean, the idea being you want your people to spend as little time as possible in the emergency department, you want people to spend as little time as possible in the ward, and the idea being as soon as they can leave the ward, you get them off the ward, you get them into the community, you get them back to their own home if possible. Now, in order to do that, you've got to have the support structures in place, you've got to have the community teams in place, you've got to have all that done, and maybe these are things that are going to get looked at in Limerick, because one of the problems they have in Limerick is there was 2 or 3 sort of community hospitals around the area. Ennis, for instance, was a full general hospital with an ED. That was then scrapped. So now what was happening was, when you've got people in a place like Ennis that no longer has an ED, they all now have to go to Limerick. And what they were doing was they're sort of, rationalising things by you shut down the ED in a place like Ennis. Ennis becomes effectively a large community hospital. The acute and ED service moves up to Limerick. But if you don't have a corresponding increase in capacity in Limerick, what you're actually now doing is you're basically throwing another hospital in on top of it, and I think that may well be what happened in Limerick over the years. Irish Daily Mirror this morning. Everything is jawsome for Lego trawler. I love this story. Keith Perry writes, a fisherman has caught a rare Lego shark 27 years after it went missing in a famous shipping accident. It's one of 4.7 million pieces lost in the Great Lego Spill of 1997. A freak wave hit the Tokyo Express 20 miles off Cornwall, causing it to tilt dangerously, losing 62 containers. Richard West, who was fishing for Monkfish and Sole, found the toy Lego shark while trawling off the coast of Penzance. He contacted the Lego Lost at Sea project, and it's the first ever reported shark to be recovered from the spill. So, well, love, how did work go today? Oh, it was great. I caught a shark. Oh, what kind of shark was it? Was it a bottlenose? Was it a whatever? No, love, it was Lego. Yeah. Now, let's look at the Irish Daily Star. Celine, he can't go Don playing my tune. And I saw this over the weekend. Celine Dion's management have issued a statement hitting out at Donald Trump because he used a recording and video of Celine Dion singing My Heart Will Go On at a Trump-Vance campaign rally in Montana. The statement says, and I like this, the statement says, in no way is this use authorised and Celine Dion does not endorse this or any similar use. And then ... And really? That song? Like that. So that's Celine Dion and her management team taking a very clear line on Donald Trump. And the other story in the Mirror on the same page, actually, that caught my eye, and Lee prefaced this when we were chatting before the show started. Daithí O'Shea has revealed he's gone back to college to train as a life coach, as he admits every television presenter's career has a shelf life. The Kerry native has been on our screens since 1994, working across programmes such as TG Cahir's Weather Forecasts, RTE's Today Show and The Rose of Tralee. He says he loves working on television, but he feels it won't last forever. He says the day is going to come where they're going to tap me on the shoulder and say, Daithí, we're after copping onto you. You're gone. And reminds me of Dustin the Turkey on Zig and Zag many years ago when Zig and Zag did the Den in the afternoons. And there was one legendary period where the Den used to finish every afternoon by Dustin ringing a celebrity. And it could be a radio presenter, it could be a newsreader, it could be a singer, and it would be like, you just see Dustin pick up the phone and you hear that grrr, 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 and he just goes, hello. Is that Donal Kavanagh? Hey, the game's up. You're blading brutal. And for a person who is supposedly intelligent and in their 20s, as I was at the time, I absolutely loved it. I made a point every day of getting in from work just so I could watch the end of the Den, just so I could see who Dustin was going to run up and slag off over the phone. Because that's the way I rolled when I was 20. And to be honest, if the Den were still on, I'd still be doing it. The Irish Sun to close. Ireland ace Clinton Roy is a changed man. Ex-Ireland striker Clinton Morrison says his old teammate Roy Keane has mellowed out since becoming a granddad. Londoner Clinton qualified for the boys in green through his Dubliner granny. The 45-year-old bagged 9 goals. He says Keane has had a grandchild and now Roy Keane has mellowed, and Roy is now just a lovely, cuddly... Yeah, I will believe Roy Keane is a lovely, cuddly guy when I see it. Mental News Show on Highland Radio. It's 9:20. If the ad's still running, I'm going to be telling you that in a few minutes again anyway. But there's a spoiler. It's 9:20. It'll be about 22 minutes past by the time I tell you next. But right now we're going to take a break. Back after these.
Daily newspapers are courtesy of Cosgrove, Centra and Diner, Mountaintop, Letterkenny.
The 9 till Noon Show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Digital loans now available. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account. 4 Fridays.
4 winners.
Plus 1 lucky jackpot.
20 grand.
Highland Radio.
Oh, that anyway.
Did you know that you should always avoid dressing your child in clothes with strings or cords? These can easily get caught or snagged on something in the playground or garden, which could cause serious injury to your child. Visit mychild.ie for advice on pregnancy, baby and toddler health.
If you've a free travel pass, remember to use it on the Expressway network. It's the perfect way to catch up with friends, see your grandchildren and those you love. So use your free travel pass today. You can also book a seat online in advance at expressway.ie and get priority boarding for just €2 per journey. It's just the ticket to enjoy more.
Discover a new standard in healthcare at Greenview Medical Centre, Letterkenny. For routine checkups or urgent concerns, Greenview Medical Centre offers children's consultations, referrals, prescriptions and specialised male and female healthcare. Don't wait to get the care you deserve. Book now at greenviewmedicalcentre.ie or call 074 920 2070. Early morning and late evening appointments available. Greenview Medical Centre, Riverside Retail Park, Letterkenny. A new health horizon.
Highland Radio Time Checks brought to you by EirGrid, the operator and developer of Ireland's electricity grid. EirGrid, powering up communities, powering up Ireland. The time is
22 minutes past 9 o'clock. Just want to mention something, by the way, as part of Highland Radio's efforts to ensure that we are providing you with the quality service that you deserve and the best programming that we can possibly provide. Some of our team are out and about in Donegal this morning with laptops, and they'll be asking people questions as part of a survey Highland Radio is conducting. So just to say that this is happening, it's happening today. So if anyone approaches you today wearing Highland Radio clothing, holding a laptop and saying, you know, look, I'm here on behalf of Highland, would you answer a few questions? I can absolutely confirm it is genuine. They are out there working for Highland. This is part of our ongoing efforts to make sure that we're giving you the best possible service that we can. And we have a really good team. They're really fantastic people that are out and about. And please do engage with them, because it'll help them do their job. It'll help us improve our service. And ultimately, it'll mean that you get a better service on air and through our various electronic and social media platforms as well. So if you're approached by somebody today conducting a survey on behalf of Highland Radio, and I know you have to be so careful these days with stuff like that, I can confirm it's genuine. They are members of our team, and this is part of an ongoing project to ultimately make sure, hopefully, that you get a better service. Now, let's go to line one, because we're joined on the line by Chad Leffler, who is the owner of Your Man's Coffee Cove in the vicinity of Fintown, a brilliant part of the world. Chad, good morning to you. Chad, in terms of the driving that takes place in the area, you're in a coffee booth, you're on the side of the road. Who better than someone like yourself to observe what's happening on the road? And in the Fintown area, you have concerns.
We do, and it is unfortunate that I do see some of the things that I do out there. Yes, the new roadworks was completed. It's great. Footpaths are wonderful. It's unfortunate that we have just too many heavy speedsters that come through Fintown.
And as you say, there has been a lot of... Now, I've not been through Fintown since the road was finished. So to my mind, mention Fintown, I'm thinking, oh, Jesus, I'll allow an extra 10, 15 minutes for your journey because you're going to be going through Fintown at 10 kilometres an hour. That is not the case now. So, and this so often happens in a place where really good roadworks are done. What you now have is a brand new, spank black tar, modern, perfect road going through Fintown. The problem with a great road like that is it almost invites speed.
It seems to, yes. And through Fintown, that's exactly what you have. You have a straightaway through the mountains of Donegal where it's unfortunate. Either people have forgotten that it's an actual village with a school and church and library and everything that a small village has, but it's a smooth, as now ourselves are starting to call it, the Fintown motorway, because people just fly through there. And there have been a couple of instances over the last 2 or 3 months that have been so bad that we've contacted who we think we know who to contact as far as the council, but it just seems to be falling on deaf ears. We know that they've done speed studies or speed checks or whatever, and we know that they found folks traveling at over 120 through a village that has a posted speed limit of 60. So, and we just are at a loss. And the 2 instances that I'm referring to involve cars jumping on footpaths to overtake vehicles, but then one time a car jumped on the footpath to avoid an oncoming vehicle while they were in the middle of passing 4 vehicles through the town of Fintown.
Where there is a 60 kilometre an hour zone.
Yes. And everything we've done has fallen on deaf ears, and something's going to happen, and we just... we're at a loss of what to do.
What actually has the council done? I presume they've put the two. You often see they'll put sort of two strips of wire, whatever, a meter or whatever apart to gauge speeds and so on. I presume they've done all that, and they've had their people on the ground as well. I mean, and I know a lot of the time what they'll say is they're building up statistics. They're building up a statistical picture of what's happening in an area, and I presume that has started. You have had, I presume, those two strips of wire going across the road to measure speed.
The two strips, no, they did not do that. What they did was put what they said was a speed camera, not a camera, a speed detecting device in 3 areas through the village, and that was done months ago. And like you say, I'm sure they're gathering data. I'm sure they're, I guess they're going to keep gathering data until something really drastic happens. I don't know.
And the reality is too, Fintown, where Fintown is situated, it's what most people would use as the main road between Letterkenny and Dunlow. It's the main road between Letterkenny and Glenties. It's the road between Ballybofey, the Twin Towns and Dunlow.
Exactly.
Twin Towns and Glenties as well. So it is, and I mean, and the other thing that strikes me about that is I would occasionally for work travel to Dunlow. You leave Letterkenny, you drive through Meteor. They're very windy, very bendy roads. Right. That ahead of you is the road. When you turn off to the right from Fintown, you've got that long windy road up toward Doohery, then you've got the corkscrew outside Doohery.
Correct.
So you've come through Meteor, which can be slow. You're heading toward Doohery, which can be slow, and there's almost this psychological thing is here, this is where I can make up some time, and that's the danger, and that's what people need to stop thinking, that we need to get that out of our minds as, that new road, it's a brilliant road, we can make up a bit of time there, and that's the way potentially people are thinking.
And even before, there are areas to overtake if you wanted to before Fintown and after Fintown, but for some reason it's through the villages where people decide to overtake, and again, it's not everybody, but when I see 10 or 12 overtakings a day through the village, and the overtakings aren't passing a tractor, they're not passing just a slower vehicle. It's passing somebody else who's doing 80 kilometers an hour. It's passing someone else. It's just the overall speed that is going to cause a big problem at some point.
How long is the new road actually? I'm trying to think in my own head now, but how long is that new road actually operational? It's a couple of months, isn't it?
Over a year now.
It's over a year.
They finished the blacktop. They finished the lines and all that last summer. But now they had to come back and redo a couple things and all that. But the actual the finished road was done by last July.
Oh, I didn't think it was that long ago now, to be honest. It shows how behind the times I am. But no, it is, and it's an important one.
You should come through Fintown.
I should go through more actually. No, unless I did go through about 2 months ago because I was there just a few weeks before the local elections, covering a council meeting. It must have been one of the days when they were back doing some other work. I mean, I seem to recall there was still some lingering roadworks taking place, or perhaps it was just
that. So that could have been the bollards that they were putting in. Okay, so here's another sort of side thing. There are 4 footpaths through the village. I'm sorry, 4 pedestrian crossings through the village that they have not finished yet. The markers are it's there. You can see where the crossings are going to be. You can see that they're going to put some kind of pedestrian crossing in. However, they haven't finished them. There are no zebra marks. There's nothing on the road that tells a motorist, hey, there could be a pedestrian here. But the one thing they did do a couple of months ago, possibly when you were coming through, they did put the bollards up, the little posts that are at normal pedestrian crossings. So that's part. They've started to come back and finish them, but the last communication that I had with anyone from the council said that they didn't know exactly how they were going to finish them.
Yeah.
So if they don't know, I don't know what else to do, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll certainly put it out there, and as we said at the offset, Chad, I mean, no one better than someone like yourself, who you literally are on the side of that road every day for hours and hours, and you see what's going on, and your sort of observations would suggest that there is a problem, and it's an ongoing problem.
It is, and the picture that I posted last week of the kids riding their bike along the footpath, I just wanted folks to understand that the footpath is not waiting to be used; it is being used. People do use that daily. People use it, all the time. And the kids that are up and down on scooters and bikes and walking, especially during, when they're not in school, those kids are. We know them as well. They come up and support us. They become sort of extended family to us. And we don't want anything to happen to them either.
Yeah, and of course, Fintown, particularly this time of year with the steam railway and so much else going on around the county, Fintown is a busy tourist area, as in excess of 3,000 vehicles going through there every day.
Right, exactly.
Chad, we'll certainly keep an eye on what's happening, and we'll be making contact with the council, and we'll see what the council have to say. In the meantime, if you get any more words from the council or any of the representatives, please do get in touch and let us know what the story is. But for now, Chad Leffler, the owner of Your Man's Coffee Cove, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning.
Well, thank you very much for everything you do as well.
Well, thank you, Chad. It is our pleasure. That's Chad there in Fintown, and a wonderful part of the world. And I can absolutely see, I do... Yeah, if you're driving from Letterkenny, as I said, if you're driving Letterkenny to Dunlow, you've got Meteor and those twisty roads. Once you've got sort of through past Glen Swilly, it gets really twisty, all through Meteor, all that whole area. Brilliant, lovely place to drive. If it's a sunny day, the scenery around there is gorgeous. But you come down then when you connect onto the road that comes from Ballybofey through Glenfin. Once you're on that road, it's just a straight line into Fintown. It's a lovely, wide, really good road. And I think psychologically, very often people are thinking, and if there's someone slow in front of you, you're thinking, God, if they're turning off now for Doohery, I'm going to get stuck behind them for ages. And maybe there's a thing in our heads that sort of says to us, take him now, take him now, take him now, there's nothing coming. And the problem is when you're driving through a village, you might see nothing coming, but you don't know when a bike is going to come out from the footpath. You don't know when a kid's going to come out from the footpath. You don't know what's going to happen. So maybe all of us, and I say us, all of us as drivers need to be really conscious of that and just conscious that, yeah, it's a lovely, big, straight, wide road, but it's not an invitation to overtake because it's also people's home. 9:34, back after these.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from €40,000 to €600,000 with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
Letterkenny Summer Sessions Festival in association with Highland Radio presents Family Fun Day. Sunday 18th of August, 12 to 3:30pm, the Big Top at Kiltoy. Megatunes mascot concert, Cullen's Fun Fair, face painting and much more. Tickets only €10 or family of 5 for €40. Tickets at summer-sessions.ie or pay at the festival site box office. Sunday 18th of August, 12 to 3:30pm. With the scenic Lawfoyle Ferry, your coastal adventure can be even more exciting. Enjoy breathtaking sights on the Lawfoyle Ferry, carrying all categories of vehicles, connecting the Causeway coastal route to the Wild Atlantic Way. Operating daily from 9am to 8:15pm with up to 40 sailings per day. Book your ticket now on lawfoyleferry.com.
You'll have seen on the news over the weekend, and particularly Saturday night and yesterday, there was trouble in Derry City in the Nailers Row area, close to the courthouse there on Saturday night. 10 police officers injured during disorder, fireworks, petrol bombs and other missiles used to attack officers. And you'll have noticed immediately the age of some of those involved was extremely young. I'm joined on the line by Councillor Lillian Sinoy Barr, who is the Mayor of Derry City and Strabane District Council. Mayor, you're welcome.
Very much.
Lillian, in terms of the incidents that happened on Saturday, our understanding first and foremost is that if I'm correct, I don't believe police are linking this with the anti-immigration protests that were taking place in Belfast. This is being treated as something different.
Yes, I think what we have seen circulating on social media is a group of young people, children literally, around 10 years of age, causing mayhem in our city on Saturday night. It's absolutely appalling to see the violence, which is completely unjustified, for young people targeting police who have been in extremely challenging, who have had an extremely challenging week or throughout here in the north, and due to the ongoing tension and incidents of intimidation. But these two are completely not linked, and it's just appalling.
Listening to your party leader and the Foyle MP, Colm Eastwood, on the news last night, he was saying that he's in no doubt that there are other figures behind those young people. Those young people aren't just finding petrol bombs. Those young people aren't just finding fireworks. They're being given them, they're being prompted, and they're being pushed into the front line by others.
I think it's true, but I believe that the question we need to be asking now, it's not just about those who are behind the attacks, but where are the parents of these children? We've seen it is just young people, literally children. And the question that I would like us to be asking is, are these parents taking accountability? Are they responsible for their children? If I had a 10-year-old child who is not at home at 9 p.m., I'll be out on the street searching for them. And if I don't get them within an hour, I'll be asking the police. I'll be concerned about their safety. And I think the behavior is utterly unacceptable in this city. The people of Derry have rejected violence, and what happened on Saturday doesn't represent in any shape or form our people here. But I think we now need to have a very serious conversation with parents of these children.
The point was made at the weekend as well that these incidents took place almost literally outside a residential facility for elderly people. And I can't help thinking that those older people, they'll have lived through Operation Motorman, they'll have lived through the Battle of the Bogside, they'll have lived through Bloody Sunday and all its horrific aftermath. They'll have seen their neighbours shot and hurt. They'll have seen so much trouble in the city. I mean, the last thing they need or deserve at this point in their lives is this.
Absolutely. It's distressing to even think that they have been put through the same horrific experience that they had during the Troubles. This is not needed now. I just want to understand personally, what were they protesting about? Why were they targeting the police? You know, we can really talk about this social economic deprivation in this city, which could be used, but these are people behind, they are adults behind these issues. But I still want to stress, where are the parents of these children? Parents should know better than to allow mindless people taking advantage of their innocent children. These children are going to get criminal offense. This will destroy their entire life because of one thing that they did, which could have caused serious injuries to the police, or even worse, tragically, as we have seen before. So it's a serious conversation we really need to have as a city and district, particularly parents, because they have to take responsibility now.
Watching a BBC News report last night, one of the interesting things was that there were a number of tourists from Europe interviewed, and in both cases they were saying they're not nervous about being in the city. They're not worried about their own safety, and that's something you want to see continue. But the problem is, if there are more incidents like this, perhaps people are going to think again about going to Derry, and Derry is such a wonderful city, it's such a wonderful area. The last thing you want to do is get some word out there that somehow Derry is dangerous, Derry is going back to being a no-go area, because it is anything but.
Absolutely. And this city has endured so much. And at the moment, we should be celebrating the peace that was achieved because of people who worked so hard to ensure that this city is what it is right now. I was so proud of standing outside the gate halls on Wednesday last week talking about the positive of this city, people coming together to say we are an open society, we are welcoming, our migrants are welcome here. We'll look after them. This city is ready to grow economically. We are working hard to create more jobs for everyone. We are working hard to expand our university. The people who are causing this mayhem have absolutely no interest in the progress of this country and this city, and we need to call them out. We need to uproot them in our society because we are ready to welcome investors to come to our city. And this city has seen so many tourists coming up the last few years. We want to maintain that. We want to show that we are open for business. But the attacks that took part on Saturday will not be able to get us that positive message to the world if we continue like this. And the people of this city actually don't want it in the first place. They want a peaceful society. And that's why I'm absolutely appalled by what happened, because we have made so much progress in our city and district.
Is it your belief that there'll be a community response to this, that people within the community in Bogside, Cregan and further afield in Derry will effectively say to their children and say to their neighbours and say to their friends, no, this cannot happen, this has got to stop, and it's got to stop now?
I absolutely hope so. I was outside yesterday attending a very positive, uplifting event where the community in the Bogside came together to run a 5K marathon for raising money to a charity in the city that is supporting young people and adults with mental health illness. And this is the kind of programs we want to see running, very positive events. That is what the people of the Bogside want. And I have no doubt that this is a conversation that is going to be had in that place because there's so much progress. There are very good community workers working in the area, really also condemning that violence, and political leaders are united in this.
Councillor Lillian Siloy Barr, the Mayor of Derry City and Strabane, thank you very much indeed, Mayor, for speaking to us this morning.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the situation there in Derry. And just to reiterate what the Mayor said there and what police are saying as well, is they are not linking this to the anti-immigration protests that were taking place in Belfast and elsewhere over the weekend as well. Now, we're going to take a very short break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about an issue you've been hearing on the news today with Donna Marie, that issue of airlines facing increased fees if they allow people travel into the country without proper documentation. Very short break. Back in just a moment.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
Virgin Media customers make the right call with exclusive offers on mobile. Like our unlimited multi-SIM plan for just €15 a month per person. And enjoy 99% coverage on a 30-day contract. Switch in-store or at virginmedia.ie. Virgin Media, it's playtime.
Customer unlimited multi-SIM €15 per person while Virgin Media broadband and or TV is active. Applies to 2 to 6 mobile subscriptions. For T's and C's, see virginmobile.ie.
Connect Hearing is open for free hearing tests. Our audiologist is available Monday to Friday for wax removal services at our Letterkenny clinic in the Courtyard Shopping Centre. We also offer a home visit for those who aren't able to visit us. Our hearing is our social sense. Are you finding hearing more of a challenge? Call Ursula today on 07491 13296 to make an appointment. Good hearing helps us to connect to our family, friends and loved ones. Connect Hearing, connecting you to life.
Join the first ever Donegal Mela on August 17th at Angrinnan Theatre Plaza from 1 till 5 p.m. Enjoy vibrant Indian culture with live music, dance, workshops, kids activities and more. Don't miss this cultural celebration by the Indian Community Centre, Letterkenny, supported by Donegal County Council and Creative Ireland. For more info, visit letterkennyindians.ie.
Highland Radio weather updates brought to you by McElhinney's. Make your sterling go further with our new cash sales exchange rate at €1.20 for every £1 spent in store. No matter the weather, visit us in Ballybuffet for all your fashion, beauty, gifting and homeware needs this summer.
Well, after some extremely heavy showers and thunderstorms in the early hours, we'll have a largely dry day today with sunny spells. Top temperatures 17 to 22 degrees Celsius. Moderate to fresh southwesterly winds in the morning. They'll ease light to moderate. Early tonight, dry with clear spells. Cloud will increase, bringing some scattered rain or drizzle. Some mist patches forming as well. Lowest overnight temperatures 12 to 14. Moderate to fresh and gusty. Southerly winds will develop. Tomorrow morning, cloudy and breezy. Outbreaks of rain or drizzle. The rain will clear eastward in the early afternoon, followed by dry weather and sunny spells. Top temperatures 16 to 21, warmest in the east with moderate to fresh and gusty. Southerly winds tomorrow, easing and becoming west to northwest. Now, as you'll have been hearing on the news with Donna Marie, airlines and ferry companies that allow someone to board or disembark without the proper documentation are facing higher fines from today. And to discuss that and its repercussions, we're joined I'm delighted to say, on Zoom by our go-to commentator for all issues travel, Owen Corrie. Owen, good morning.
Good morning, Donal. How are you this morning?
Very, very well indeed, Owen. Great to talk to you. Owen, how significant is this? The fine is increasing from €3,000 to €5,000. Now, I must say there's a little cynical part of me that says a €2,000 increase in a fine imposed on an airline, I don't think too many airlines are going to be panicking and quaking in their boots about that.
Well, it's going to cost a lot of money if the level of fines remains more or less where it is. It's about 5,000 in 2022 and about 3,285 exactly in 2023. So it'll cost about 25 million to the aviation industry. A couple of things about it, though. You know, the fines are already very high. So when these things happen, it tends not to be somebody arriving, to set up a people smuggling business. It tends to be someone who has a tear in their passport, water damage, they've been out in the rain, they've been on the beach. They're the people who get refused boarding at check-in because of the serious fines in airlines. And they're also the ones that get stopped in immigration and refused entry. And that's when the fine goes back to the airline. We've had people going to Lourdes with out-of-date passports where the airline has been fined the €3,000. That's how the situation works in the ground. And I do think that increasing the fine from 3,000 to 5,000 probably won't increase the level of diligence by the airlines and the ferry companies, because certainly that's the suggestion that Helen McEntee is making when she introduces the increase in fine. She's saying these guys aren't diligent about checking. My experience, they are.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking too, because I know if I were intending to fly and I turn up at the airport without my passport, I know I am getting nowhere near that plane, and I suspect the same holds true for yourself and for most people. And it's interesting you mentioned, because I was going to say that I mean, we've all heard stories about someone not being allowed on because the dog chewed one page of a passport or there was a little tear or something like that. I mean, it begs the question, how do people actually manage to get onto the planes then? You know, if we can't do it, you know, under any circumstance because we have a tear in our passport, how do people manage to get on planes without passports at all?
And there is the big issue is if somebody's determined to flout the law and enter illegally, we're asking what Helen McEntee is saying, that the member of the cabin crew, the girl or the fella on the gate who is checking in 189 passengers in 20 minutes is supposed to have that diligent eagle eye that detects someone who's determined to make their way through immigration officials and all the software and all the legal rights they have. It's a very it's a real exercise in pointing the finger elsewhere and offloading the responsibility. We can get hung up on what Helen McEntee is doing, but every single European country is doing this. they're increasing fines. They introduce fines for airlines to make them more diligent, and they just pump it up and say, well, you're not diligent enough. We're going to increase your diligence by increasing the fine. Really doesn't work like that. The 25 million extra is going to have to be paid by us in extra fares. And the consequences, by the way, for somebody, sometimes they don't work for the airline. Ryanair would and Aer Lingus would employ contract staff in most of the airlines in Europe. The person who lets somebody on with the torn passport or with the water damage could lose their job. That's the outcome of what's happening today. The airline will get the fine and they'll go straight back to the usually young person who checked in 189 passengers onto the flight at the gate and say, it was your responsibility in the horrible, cruel world we live in. So I don't think it'll make any difference where most of the changes I've seen have come is that Gardaí are more likely to start checking passports as people exit the aircraft rather than at the immigration. It's sporadic, it's spot checking. It's only started in the last year. And the reason is there is evidence, or there's anecdotal evidence, and there's probably real evidence of people destroying paperwork when they land. There's no way that someone at the check-in desk or the gate can be held responsible for someone boarding an aircraft and then flushing a passport down a toilet when they land.
In my naivety, I always assumed that the main passport check at the airport was going to be when you're going through security at departures, and that the check at the gate was a sort of a cursory look at the passport just to make sure that the name matched what was written on the boarding card. I mean, I would have always thought that the main passport check, you've gone through security, and nobody should have got through security that doesn't have the proper documentation. Obviously, the check-in process and the gate is far more important than I would have potentially thought.
Okay, let's work out. Let's talk through what everybody does, because you make a very good point there. Airport security doesn't really need your passport. They just want to see your boarding card. Yeah. They just want to know you're legally entitled to enter the sanitized departures area from the arrivals area where everyone can come and go. The second thing you're looking for, the first place you're stopping is the check-in. That's where the real issue of visas, passport in date, water damage in the passport, that's the check-in, and it tends to be a little bit more time there. That's where the real checking should be done. We have a very powerful passport, Donal. We tend to be able to come and go around the world without too much hassle. But listeners who have flown through the Middle East will know the long queue at the check-in desk as everybody goes through their documentation. Have you the right visa? Is the visa at the right date? Does it have the right clearances? They almost are relieved when you arrive at an Irish passport, because that's where all that very mountain of documentation that some countries need, including Irish residents with the foreign passports need, it's at the check-in desk. What they look for at the gate tends to be, are you the same person that's name is on the boarding card? That's very clearly to resell, to prevent people reselling airline tickets. Buy a cheap ticket and sell it to somebody else with a day to go. You make sure that the person at the gate has the right, is the same person as is on the boarding card. They look for a passport for that, but they've also, and this is where the fine has come in, have been ramped up to check the validity of that documentation at the gate. It's a huge amount to ask of an already overworked airline employee. And the sad thing is here that it's not just Helen McEntee, but all over Europe we've seen, and Willie Walsh, who is Secretary General of the International Aviation Body, is from Glasnevin, is very vocal on this. We've seen increasingly the immigration industry, the immigration officials, the bureaucrats offloading their responsibilities onto airlines, and it gives the politicians a chance to point the finger somewhere else. Putting it back on the airlines isn't really a solution, but it looks like a solution from where some people are looking.
Is it the case that what's happened over the years is procedures have changed, but sort of the protocols haven't changed with them? And I'll tell you what I'm talking about. There was a time when you were checking in for a flight, you walked into an airport, you walked up to a desk, there was a person at the desk, you gave them your passport, you gave them your reference number, and they issued you with a boarding card. And at that point, your passport was checked, check number 1. Then you go through departures, check number 2. Then you get to the gate, check number 3. We've now pretty much almost done away with that happening, because if it's Aer Lingus, you're checking it online. You can put your cases through the automatic thing if you're in Dublin Airport. You can easily get to the departure gate without speaking to a single person, having checked in your bag and checked in online and all that. So that's one part of the process where a passport might have been checked, completely taken out of the equation. But we still have exactly the same procedures after that. The procedures further down the line haven't changed, even though the check-in is now completely different. Or does that make sense?
Traveling in the way we travel within Europe, it's almost like getting the bus. What you will find if you are moving into a more complicated environment, most listeners will be familiar with traveling to the United States and Canada, for instance. When you go for your mobile boarding pass to be issued on your phone and anything else isn't in order, it won't issue the boarding pass. It means you'll have to go to check-in. And the reason is that it's fairly simple for Irish passport holders. You need your ETA for Canada or your EFTA for the United States. But if you're someone who was born in India, traveling on an Indian passport, living in Ireland and going to France, it won't issue your mobile boarding pass because they will need to know that you have your Schengen visa in order. Now, all of that, increasingly the visa system is being brought online as well. We've already had a couple of test flights where people don't even have to stop at immigration, that with the iris recognition that they can walk through security at the airport, get on board and walk off at the other end, and their passport in their pocket can be digitally read. All of that technology is in place. It won't be introduced massively until every single security official in Europe is happy with it. But the technology is certainly there for that. It all works wonderfully if we're flying to Malaga or Faro, but if you've got something more complicated, like going to a country that requires a visa, you do need to check in still, Donal. The system still breaks down. The vast majority of those fines that have been doled out to airlines, and there were nearly 5,000 in 2022, 3,285 in 2023, repeating those figures because just that's the level of what we're dealing with. Less than 0.01% of inbound people coming to Ireland. Okay, the vast majority of those are not people arriving with sophisticated documentation to try and defraud the authorities. They're people, as you say, the dog chewed page 32 of my passport.
Owen Corrie, as ever, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning. Food for thought. Absolutely, Owen, thank you. That's Owen Corrie there. Going to go for news in just a few moments, but before we do, it's National Heritage Week from the 12th to the 16th of August this week. And on the show, we have 2 family heritage cards valued at €90 to give away. These cards are free for one family, 2 adults and up to 5 children over 12, to over 45 OPW managed heritage sites across the country. You can visit any or all attractions as often as you like, and heritageweek.ie for all event listings for Donegal and across the country. To win, we have a cryptic clue, and we want you to listen to the cryptic clue and identify the heritage site in Donegal that this refers to. And we're in poetic mood today on Highland Radio. High above Burt, this fort has found fame, as dramatic as the theatre that also bears its name. Text or WhatsApp your answer, name and address to 086 60 25,000. What heritage site am I talking about? High above Burt, this fort has found fame, as dramatic as the theatre that also bears its name.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
Virgin Media customers make the right call with exclusive offers on mobile. Like our unlimited multi-SIM plan for just €15 a month per person. And enjoy 99% coverage on a 30-day contract. Switch in-store or at virginmedia.ie. Virgin Media, it's playtime.
Customer unlimited multi-SIM €15 per person while Virgin Media broadband and or TV is active. Applies to 2 to 6 mobile subscriptions. For T's and C's, see virginmobile.ie.
The 4-star Ballyliffin Lodge and Spa, County Donegal, are hosting their wedding fair Sunday 25th of August from 1 to 4 p.m. Best of the best local exhibitors, full hotel show around, plus check out their Rolls Royce and Range Rover wedding cars, plus so much more. Miss it? Miss out.
Foyle Coaches Northwest Busways are looking for experienced bus drivers for local link routes on a 2-week rota. Must have experience in full-size coaches, a clean D driving licence and be CPC compliant. Very competitive pay rates are offered, starting at €22 per hour. Apply by the 21st of August to Foyle Coaches Northwest Busways Limited, Clogher, Redcastle, County Donegal, or email info@foylecoaches.com.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, it's Donna Marie Doherty with the news at 10 o'clock. The Mayor of Derry City and Strabane District Council says parents of children involved in rioting need to be held accountable. 10 police officers were injured during disorder on Naylor's Road when petrol bombs, fireworks and heavy masonry were thrown at them. Alarm has been raised at how young some of the participants were. Mayor Councillor Lillian Sinwar-Barr has been asking where were their parents.
The question that I would like us to be asking is, are these parents taking accountability? Are they responsible for their children? If I had a 10-year-old child who is not at home at 9 p.m., I'll be out on the street searching for them. And if I don't get them within an hour, I'll be asking the police. I'll be concerned about their safety. And I think the behavior is utterly unacceptable in this city. The people of Derry have rejected violence.
A man in his 40s has been charged in connection with online threats made against the Taoiseach Simon Harris. Gardaí say they've charged the man, who's been held at a Garda station in the northwest, as part of the investigation into online threats made against an elected representative. He's expected to appear before Galway District Court this afternoon at 3. 350 homes and businesses remain without power this morning following adverse weather. Full details can be found on the ESB Power Check website. Meanwhile, the power outages did cause supply disruptions to the Carrigart, Glen, Downings and Cranford areas. Crews are working to have it restored as quickly as possible. However, it may take up to 3 to 4 hours after the restoration works are complete for supplies to fully return. The number of people trying to enter Ireland at airports with false or missing documents has fallen by up to 40%. Justice Minister Helen McEntee is making the claim as increases on the fines in airlines which allow some of the board to plan to enter the state without proper documentation. It's the latest effort by the government to tackle the issue of immigration. Minister McEntee says the maximum penalty now stands at €5,000.
Overall, in the last 2 years, there's been a reduction of about 30 to 40% of people coming through our airports in particular with false documents or trying to discard the documents when they arrive. So the actions that were taken, the fines that are already being applied, the work that's been done in the airport but also in other European airports and beyond is working and is having that positive impact that we want.
An additional €400 million will be announced for Irish sports in the coming week. The government says funding for athletes and facilities will top €500 million in advance of the next Olympic Games in 2028. September's announcement will include around €250 million for sports capital and around €120 million for large-scale projects, including stadiums and regional sports centres. Minister of State for Sport, Thomas Byrne, says there will also be a focus on increasing the number of full-time coaches in the country.
My ambition is to double the funding for sport by 2027 from the baseline. That's an important objective in terms of the support for coaches. And I certainly want to make sure that our athletic system has enough coaches. That's an area I think where there's huge medal potential. So we need to look at talent transfer as well from other sports into certain parts of athletics.
Gardaí are warning road users in Letterkenny that a zero-tolerance approach is being taken to parking infringements surrounding the venue of this week's summer sessions. The event gets underway this Thursday and will run for 4 days. Cliona O'Dwyer has more.
Attendees are asked not to park on the N56 from Ballyrain to Knocknamona roundabout, Gertley Road, Kiltoy Road or in any other area which may cause disruption to local residents. They're also appealing for illegal parking to be avoided and to ensure room is left for emergency access. Several park and ride services will be available which are being organised by event management and these should be utilised where possible. These services will be advertised on all of the summer sessions' social media pages.
Looking now to weather, heavy showers and thunderstorms clearing, leaving a largely dry day with sunny spells, with highest temperatures of 17 or 18 degrees. That's all for now from Highland Radio News. Back with headlines at 11. The Obituary notices this Monday morning, the 12th of August. The death has occurred of Anne McDevitt, Anna Gray. Her remains will be in McGlynn's funeral home from 4 p.m. until 8 p.m. today, followed by rosary in her home at 9 o'clock, reposing at her residence from 10 a.m. until 9 p.m. tomorrow. Funeral on Wednesday at 11 a.m. in St Mary's Star of the Sea Church, Anna Gray, followed by burial in the adjoining cemetery. House private on the morning of the funeral, please. The death has taken place of May Lynch, née Doherty, 37, Dr McGinley Road, Glencar, Letterkenny. May's remains will be reposing at her late residence today from 12 noon until 10 p.m, with rosary at 9 o'clock. Funeral from there tomorrow at 10:30, going to St Eunan's Cathedral, Letterkenny, for 11 a.m. Requiem Mass, which can be viewed on churchservices.tv. Interment afterwards in Newleck Cemetery, family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu of flowers if desired to Hillcrest Nursing Home Comfort Fund, care of any family member. The death has taken place of Eugene McGettigan at Letterkenny, reposing at his late residence, 104 Ard O'Donnell, Letterkenny. Funeral from there this morning at 10:30, going to St Eunan's Cathedral, Letterkenny, for 11 a.m. Requiem Mass, which can be viewed on churchservices.tv. Interment afterwards in St Columbus Church Cemetery, Kilmacrennan. Family time before the funeral today, please. Family flowers only, please. Donations in lieu of flowers if desired to the Friends of Letterkenny University Hospital, care of any family member. For family information and more details regarding wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
Highland Radio. Ready for this, kids? Oh, what a day for it. Nothing to do, nothing to think about. Mind, we are a bit sandwiched in here. Sandwiches! Packed lunch! Back to
Stop, it'll be grand. Aldi's got back to school sorted with everything you need. So you can get back to summer! Go all Aldi.
This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. Donal Kavanagh on the show with you until 12 noon today. A few of your comments, and caller says, what about the junction to Doohery from Fintown, where the junction is too narrow for large vehicles? If you've two HGVs coming in opposite directions at the same time, there is no space. There have already been accidents there, and I do know the junction you're talking about, caller. The only thing I would say is I think people are probably approaching that junction at about max 20-25 kilometres an hour, because you really have to take that junction slowly, and you're right, it's difficult to see what's coming, and there used to be signs that say warning oncoming traffic in middle of road, and that really counts for that junction too, so absolutely take that point. Why don't they put traffic lights in Fintown? Sadly, children have been killed there before. Well, we heard from Chad that they're looking at putting pedestrian crossings in, but that hasn't been done as of yet. Caller says, I was in Letterkenny on Friday. I saw a man mounting the pavement. Everyone had to go up on the pavement on the new dual carriageway on the Port Road. We've spent so much money and ambulances can't even get through. A conversation we've had on this show on a number of occasions. Lifford, Snowler, Castlefin, surgeries are so hard to get an appointment. You might want a particular doctor and they'll tell you to ring back tomorrow. Then when you do, there are no appointments available. Caller says Ballybofey has a pedestrian crossing at the Bank of Ireland corner. It's so dangerous. People run from the Glenfin Street straight across the road onto the crossing. It's an accident waiting to happen. Now, we have had conversations in the past about that crossing, particularly with Councillor Patrick McGowan and others, because the authorities, the RSA, had a series of experimental crossings to look at potential new ways of organising crossings. And one of the things they did was crossings with just street markings and no other signs, and they were using those in Ballybofey. And there's been a concern expressed about that one before. So my understanding is that now that's being assessed, and we'll have to see what happens there. But yeah, there's been a lot of talk about that particular crossing in Ballybofey. Caller says, could someone in authority deal once and for all with large signs which block the view on roundabouts in Letterkenny? Either it's illegal or not, but it makes life more dangerous approaching roundabouts for new drivers. Why turn a blind eye? My understanding is, and I may be wrong here, but my understanding is that Donegal County Council does effectively sell advertising spaces to advertisers on roundabouts, that you can effectively sponsor a roundabout. And you'll see another number of signs on various places, roundabouts and that. So this roundabout is sponsored by Highland Radio News. This roundabout is sponsored by Donal Kavanagh, whatever. Now, those signs should be a certain size, and those signs should not be obtrusive. They are legal, and they are by arrangement, and they are absolutely fine. Other signs are problematic, and if there are other signs causing problems, all I would say is maybe if you were to mention that to the council and report it, and something hopefully could be done about it. Now, caller, just a thing I want to go through here. Caller says, I want this to be highlighted about the welfare of young girls playing in local clubs. It's about unfair playing time. My daughter had an awful, this is about football, I believe. My daughter had an awful season last year. Didn't get to play in some matches, or was only on the pitch for a few minutes, 10 minutes at the most. This is happening again this year with not getting on for a match at all, and another player, it was the same. It's happening to a few players every game, and the best players or favourite players get to stay on for the full match. Now, this is an under-11s league where all players should be given a chance no matter what their skill set, and told that if they show up for training, they will get playing time. My child does show up for training and matches, and players that don't show up for training get right on for the whole game. Last year, it's getting to the point that my child wants to give up a sport she loves due to coaches not being fair to all players. Being a local club, it's not easy to be able to speak up and say directly about the unfair treatment. Not something I want my name attached to when being discussed. Now, I absolutely, and I will be frank here, I am speaking as someone who, growing up, playing sport was useless. You know, there's the old sort of truism about the picking the team on the playground. Yeah, I'll have him, and then I'll have him, and then I'll have him, and then I'll have him, and I'll have him, and I'll have him. And there's always one poor Lutheran left standing at the end of the session that no one wants, and the two teams nearly fight over which one of them is going to have him. That was me. Now, I absolutely understand where the caller is coming from, because I was the person who didn't get the game and didn't get picked. I was that soldier. And I understand why I was that soldier. I was that soldier because, let's be frank, if to say I wasn't very good is putting it mildly, I wasn't. This is not me being falsely modest. This is me telling the absolute truth. I was not very good. And I suppose a coach has a club, and what the coach wants to do is to win games. And the way you win games is you put on your best player. And I suppose the coach is thinking, if I play Mary, or if I play John at under 11s, they'll stay at under 12s and under 13s and under 14s, and then they'll stay into the senior team, and I want them playing. The worry is going to be that if I don't give them their game when they're 11 or 12, they'll go someplace else that will give them their game. And it's a discussion, I suspect, that's as old as time and will continue to be as old as time. All I can say, caller, is I wish you and your daughter well, and hopefully this will be resolved. Now, it's 30 minutes past 10 o'clock. We're going to take a short break. Before we do, of course, we're going to give you the bingo numbers. And before that, after the bingo numbers and a short break, we're going to be discussing a very live issue, which is political threats made against politicians, because we saw reports over the weekend that up to 60 politicians have had threats made against them in various ways. So, as I say, that's all coming up. But before we do anything else, it's time for Highland Radio NCBI Bingo. So grab your books, grab your pens, and I will hand you over to Canis.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
It's time for Vision Ireland Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Monday the 12th of August. You're playing on the green sheet. The reference number is S1. It's game number 33. The numbers are 46, 9, 1, 16, 10, 40, 23, 51, 67, and finally 25. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your Vision Ireland bingo information at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Simplify your debts with a debt consolidation loan from Letterkenny Credit Union. Call us on 074 910 2126 or apply online via our app or in office today.
Because your no claims bonus matters to you, it matters to us. That's why all AXA car insurance policies include accident forgiveness as standard. So you'll never lose all of your no claims bonus if you have an accident or a claim is made against you. Get a quote today at axa.ie. AXA. Know you can. Policy terms and conditions apply. Accident forgiveness is step back. No claims discount protection for customers with 4 or more years. No claims discount. AXA Insurance DAC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Exam results arriving? Your career starts with Northwest Regional College. On the day your exam results arrive, come along to your local Derry, Londonderry, Strabane or Limavady campus to apply for a course or confirm your place. Choose from our wide range of apprenticeships, level 3 diplomas, foundation degrees and so much more. For more, visit nwrc.ac.uk/results. Northwest Regional College. From here to career.
It's the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. Now, you'll have heard over the weekend that the Taoiseach, Simon Harris, has been expressing a concern about social media companies and threats made online against himself and his family. Now, the Independent Group of Newspapers has been doing some work on this over the past while. You may have read about this in the Sunday Independent yesterday, and again it continues into the Irish Independent this morning. A survey carried out by the Independent Group has found that up to 60 politicians have been targeted by threats of violence. Now, joined by Tabitha Monaghan, who's political reporter with the Irish Independent. Tabitha, good morning.
Good morning, Donal.
Were you surprised when your newspaper's investigations and survey found 60 politicians reporting such threats?
I really wish I would say yes, I was surprised that so many, but actually the reality is that this is so common now. As you said earlier, it's such a live issue because we're hearing so many reports now of this happening to politicians. I really wasn't that surprised. I think maybe I was surprised that it was threats maybe more than it was abuse, because you hear a lot, and maybe that is par for the course for politicians, that they hear, oh, you're rubbish at your job, or you didn't do X, Y and Z, or you aren't helping this cohort of society. But when you escalate that to threats, and if it's threats of violence or death threats, I think that's definitely a different thing that we're talking about there. So maybe a little bit surprised about the threats, but more generally, I think it shows what way things are going with society and with politicians.
And some of the threats reported to you were very explicit. Talk of guns, talk of hanging. I mean, some of this is very explicit.
Absolutely. And, some people didn't. And I tried talking to some politicians, and a lot of them saying they just want to put it behind them. But yeah, like you said, there were some very specific ones. Someone saying that they were threatened with blackmail, threatened to be hanged, threatened with a gun. Some saying that their constituency offices were targeted as well. I spoke to Fine Gael Senator Barry Ward, who got a death threat in 2009 when he first ran for local elections in the Dunleary Rathdown constituency. So yeah, there's serious threats of violence. It's not what's the word? It's very serious what they're getting. But also that there other things that they were saying was, people saying, watch yourself, you better watch your back, we're going to come and get you. So sometimes actually the things that might be more intimidating or more scary is when they aren't explicit, that they're not saying exactly what is going to happen, but that idea of you just better look over your shoulder every so often because we're watching you.
Do the threats tend to be linked with a specific issue? If you vote this way, we're going to, or if you don't vote this way, we're going to, or are they general just threats against the politician in general along the lines of sort of a curse on all your houses?
Yeah, it's definitely both, I think. Some of them were very general, like I said, just better watch yourself. But then what some politicians were saying to me when I was speaking to them for the piece was they noticed that it had happened quite a lot more after COVID, but also in terms of the homelessness issue and the immigration issue. So they might say that they had, I think one politician said to me how they felt it was transpiring was that they had a particular frustration with how things were being handled, maybe that they felt that the Irish weren't being housed and we were housing immigrants. And they had that issue. And in order to vent their frustration, that was leading to a threat. So, and actually a number of politicians said that the immigration issue was causing a lot of what we were seeing now.
In terms of the 60 that reported threats, 52 of them reported those to Gardaí, and that does suggest that they were taking those threats very seriously. We've all had someone say, "I'll kill you." You know, we've all had a passing "I'll kill you" or whatever like that, or "I'll break your legs if you don't." You know, we've all heard that, but almost in a jocular fashion. It's clear that of that 60, at least 52 thought it was serious enough to go to Gardaí.
And maybe actually, you asked me earlier on, was I surprised by the numbers who had responded to say that they had received a threat either in person or online? I actually think that was the bit that surprised me the most with the survey, is the number of politicians that deemed the threat serious enough that they felt that they had to go to the Gardaí. And exactly like you said, a lot of the politicians are saying at this stage, which, I mean, I don't think is acceptable, is that these threats are part of the course now. It's just part of the daily job. A lot of them, I mean, have said to me, but also I kind of got the sense that they're a bit desensitized from what these threats are. But like you said, 52 of those surveyed said that they did either report it to the Gardaí or at the very least they sought advice. So that mightn't mean that they necessarily said, okay, I want you to formally investigate this now. It was more, okay, what do you think? Do you think this is serious because this has maybe slightly rattled me, or this is something a little bit more than what I usually see? So it shows how serious some politicians feel like they have to take these things. And, you know, a lot of people who I spoke to saying that they were satisfied with how the Gardaí had handled it, you know, a lot of the time, thankfully, that they would investigate it and say, look, there is nothing to worry about. But yes, they are taking it so seriously that they do have to report it to Gardaí.
A caller says a person that made threats against Simon Harris is alleged to have done so on a phone from prison and is currently in jail. Why is the mainstream media not highlighting that fact?
Well, I know we've seen that reported in the media for sure.
My first thought is, if the mainstream media isn't highlighting that fact, how do we all know it?
Exactly. Well, I think what the issue is that we are highlighting this because it seems there's a perception that it is getting worse. Yeah. And I think because we're coming up to a general election as well, a lot of politicians that I spoke to, the Ceann Comhairle as well that I spoke to for this piece, Sean O'Friel, there's an idea that if this is getting worse, what is this going to do with those who decide to participate in public life, to become public representatives? So, though obviously the ones that are involved in politics now, there's many of them, like the survey revealed, that are receiving these threats. But are there other people out there that have kind of thought about running for election now, but maybe they see that this is the case and they don't want to get involved anymore? And I think it's important to note that these threats aren't just impacting the politicians themselves. Some of them will say it's unnerving. Some of them will say, oh, look, I don't pay attention to them. But it might involve their families, or it might scare their families, or it might scare their staff. I know one politician that I spoke to said they will get these emails into their constituency office, and that politician or that TD mightn't be the first person who reads that email. There's a member of their staff who are reading those first. So that's really scary for that person as well, who has to make a judgment call about how serious that is.
I'm very conscious of not putting two and two together and getting five. But one of the things that's been highlighted over the past while is that a number of TDs, particularly TDs linked with Fine Gael, are not standing again. I think it's more than 20 members of Fine Gael aren't standing. Yeah. Now, I don't want to say this is a truth and that's the truth, therefore they're both linked. But it does beg the question, is there a possibility that in some cases there is a link?
I would say that it might have factored into part of someone's reasoning for that, and it was actually something that I did speak to a number of Fine Gael politicians that aren't going to be standing in the next election, and a lot of them did say that it was family reasons, that, you know, the political life is so demanding that, you know, if you are where you are in Donegal now, you have to travel down to Dublin and you're a lot of time away from your family, a lot of time away from your constituency and those that you are representing. But there is definitely an idea that there's an increased toxicity in political life. So it mightn't necessarily be threats, but it's like I said earlier, that abuse and that rhetoric that's getting worse. And definitely social media is having a massive impact on that. I know, again, I referenced the Ceann Comhairle. As part of the piece, he said to me that, you know, at one stage, constituents or the members of the public might have been really unhappy with politicians because for whatever reason, and they'd have a chat with their neighbours about it, on the road, or they'd be in the pub and they'd have a chat about it and they'd be giving out. But now social media has enabled people to reach greater audiences, and that level of toxicity. I mean, I think we all know at this stage there's been so much conversation about what's going on online and the regulation about what's going on online, and I think there's no doubt that I'm sure the toxicity and what's going on social media and the threats and the abuse did play into those decisions, maybe on a small part. It didn't have to be the one and only reason, but if you're looking for reasons to leave, no doubt that it would say, okay, I'm kind of done with this now.
Fiona Sheehan has a very interesting article in today's Irish Independent where he's effectively saying to the Taoiseach, Simon Harris and others, look, over years you bent over backwards to bring social media companies into Ireland and make it as easy as possible for them to operate with as much freedom as possible in this country. Good luck putting that genie back in the bottle.
Absolutely, and the Taoiseach was out last week and he was asked about this because obviously those big social media companies, they're big employers here in the country. Thousands of people are employed by those companies. So there was a question as, is Ireland afraid to go really hard on these companies because we are reliant on them for the corporation tax or because they are an employer? And the Taoiseach absolutely refuted that, and he said if those companies are dining out on the idea that Ireland is not going to come for them and really come down hard on them in terms of online safety, that they have another thing coming essentially. So I don't know. I think it remains to be seen, and I did read the piece by Fiona, and there is a lot of questions as to what will happen. But we do have Coimisiún na Man now that's been set up, the new watchdog, but we also have this online safety code which is going to be published at the end of the year. So we don't know exactly what's coming in those, but Coimisiún na Man is going to be responsible for enforcing those regulations and those codes. Part of what we could see in that is significant fines for companies that don't adhere to the online safety code. Also, what the Taoiseach was saying last week, which was interesting, is how liable executives within those companies are going to be in terms of not upholding the safety code as well. And so I think we have to wait and see exactly what those guidelines are going to be, and if Coimisiún na Man will have the teeth to be able to enforce them.
Before I let you go, one final question, Tabitha. I have to ask you as a political reporter. Simon Harris and Micheál Martin, both adamant still, it seems, that the general election is going to be in March. Pretty much everybody else pretty much sure it's going to be in November. What's your own take on that?
Oh my God, it's funny. I think any of the politicians that I've spoke to, they're obviously on the Dáil recess at the moment. So they'll probably take 2 weeks off for that. But there's definitely a sense that they're starting to knock on doors there. They're getting out into constituency. So I think it's a fool's game to be guessing at this stage whether or not they will go to the polls this side of Christmas or not. It's really hard to say because, like you said, the Taoiseach has been so adamant that it will run the full term to March, and I think it'll be interesting to see if he goes back on that now this side. I think we have to get all eyes at the moment are definitely on the budget, and then it'll be more what happens after the budget. We might have a better idea.
I bet you're ready for November election, though.
We all have to be ready for an election in November. I think, like you said, so many people are assuming that it could be this side of Christmas. So you start getting ready. If the politicians are getting ready, then I suppose we better too.
Tabitha Monaghan, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this morning. Tabitha, the political reporter with the Irish Independent. Thank you very much indeed. Just a few of your comments before we go to a break. Camogie. Caller says, gutted for underdogs Galway in yesterday's Camogie final. Played their hearts out and lost to a goal thrown in by a Cork forward. Some of the chopped down tackles and pullbacks on their forwards in the closing stages would have been frees in hurling. Teams deserve fair and consistent refereeing. I'm going to keep this to one side because I think we have Brendan Devaney coming in a little bit later on, as he so often does on a Monday, and I'll have a quick chat with Brendan about that one as well. Caller says 99 of refused asylum seekers are still in Ireland. New figures show. Do you think Ireland will enforce any fine? These migrants were invited here by Roderick O'Gorman and Helen McEntee and are left in tents and treated humanely. This all fails with the government and their greed. Another caller says, is it not time that we expelled Dana Elrich, the Israeli ambassador, from our country. According to UN expert, Israel has committed genocide on multiple occasions in schools, hospitals, refugee camps, etc., including the murders of over 140 people at the weekend. Months ago, Micheál Martin castigated Sinn Féin on their stance regarding Israel and said diplomacy was the only way forward. Does anyone really think that that's working now as the genocide figures climb to above 40,000? So asks a caller. Just want to go through a statement that we got from Bus Éireann. There was a discussion on the programme last week about school transport. And there's going to be a lot more discussion, I suspect, about school transport over the course of the coming weeks, as there inevitably is in the month of August. Statement from Bus Éireann. Bus Éireann operates the school transport scheme on behalf of the Department of Education. The purpose of the scheme is to provide transport for children living remotely from their nearest school. Safety is a core value for Bus Éireann and is our first priority in all operations. Our local school transport office in Donegal continually reviews the operation of school transport services in the area and actively monitors and improves service performance, with safety being the key priority. The Bus Éireann local school transport office will continue to engage with schools in the area and parents in relation to the current operation of all school transport services. Following the payment closing date of 7th of June 2024, the Bus Éireann local school transport office in Donegal is reviewing all applications for school transport for the coming school year, and tickets are being issued in line with the guidelines of the scheme. That's a statement to us from Bus Éireann. 29 minutes to 11 o'clock. We'll take a short break. Back after these.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com. The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Digital loans now available. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account. 4 Fridays.
4 winners.
Plus 1 lucky jackpot.
20 grand.
Highland Radio.
Oh, that didn't work.
TFI Local Link operates evening and weekend services throughout rural Ireland to help you stay connected 7 days a week. We know life doesn't just happen 9 to 5, so if you're commuting, shopping, visiting family, or going out in the evenings or on the weekends, let TFI Local Link take you there. Visit transportforireland.ie.
Thinking of changing your floors? Why not see what Florid Letterkenny has to offer? Florid have a large selection of solid, semi-solid and laminate click vinyl wood flooring, together with a fantastic choice of parquet, herringbone flooring, all at incredible value. Don't delay. Call Florid today on 087 161 7008.
The Buncrana Golf Club development draw is getting closer, and so is the chance to win big with over €40,000 in prizes. With the first prize, a Hyundai i30 N-Line, and 4 amazing prizes worth over €10,000. Tickets available at driveathomedraw.ie or any club member. Your name could be on the winner's ticket. Get your ticket today. The draw takes place the 31st of August. Good luck and thank you for your support.
Did you know that M&S school uniform is durable, responsible, hand-me-downable?
Why?
Because that's what kids need.
Why?
Because sometimes things can get messy.
Why?
Because paint, puddles, ketchup.
Why?
Because school happens. M&S uniforms. Shop in-store and online at marksandSpencer.ie.
Why?
Sheridan Security now introducing zero-wire smart alarm systems. Zero wire, zero mess, and a real peace of mind. With a simple press of a button, your alarm can be set or unset, or download the free app and control it from your phone. Call us today on 074 912 6025 and get your alarm from €299. Stay local, stay safe, and protect what you value most with Sheridan Security Systems.
Big Band Country Nights continue at Logues of Cranford this Tuesday with Claudia Buckley and her band. That's another Big Band Country Night this Tuesday with Claudia Buckley at Logues of Cranford, where you'll also find music in the wee bar on Saturday and old-time dancing every Sunday.
It's the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio. In just a moment, we're going to Zoom to discuss vacant teaching jobs at secondary schools nationally and here in Donegal and further afield. But first of all, just want to remind you of our National Heritage Week quiz. National Heritage Week runs from the 12th to the 16th of August, getting underway today. And on the show, we have 2 family heritage cards valued at €90 each to give away. The cards offer free access for one family, that's 2 adults and up to 5 children over 12, to cover 45 plus OPW managed heritage sites across the country. You can visit any or all attractions as often as you like during the validity period of the heritage card. heritageweek.ie will give you new event listings for County Donegal and across the county and the country. Now, to win, I just want you to identify a well-known heritage site in Donegal using the following clue. High above Burt, this fort has found fame, as dramatic as the theatre that also bears its name. High above Burt, this fort has found fame, as dramatic as the theatre that also bears its name. Text or WhatsApp your answer to 086 60 25,000. That's 086 60 25,000. Now, I have been looking at my screen and our next guest has suddenly disappeared, so hopefully he is making his way back on. He was with us and he's just disappeared from the screen, so here he comes again. I think we'll just click admit here and bear with me for just 1 second. And as I said, we're going to be discussing vacancies within secondary schools in Donegal. And without further ado, I think we can go to Zoom because concern is being expressed about this issue by the Teachers Union of Ireland. And Joe Higgins is the executive TUA member in Donegal. Joe, good morning.
Morning, Donal. How's it going there?
It's going very well indeed. Thanks indeed for speaking to us this morning. There are over 330 vacant teaching jobs at secondary schools across the country. And the department, you believe, isn't doing enough to tackle what's becoming a serious teacher shortage crisis.
Well, look, we've looked at this and we've examined it. We've carried out surveys on it. Like we carried out a fairly recent survey, and of those who responded to the survey, 51%, felt a bit disillusioned with their profession, which isn't a good sign. And they reckon they would leave Ireland to teach in another country. Like many have gone to Dubai, many are going to where there is, permanent pensionable work. In Dubai, it's tax-free. It's very hard to turn it down. We had an austerity measure in 2009, which gutted the profession in terms of posts, in terms of getting permanency. The CIDs, the golden ticket now, we're looking at, some of these people might not come back. And if they do come back, we've also issues with getting them incremental credit. If you teach for 10 years or 15 years abroad, you come back from certain countries, you might not get, you won't get it. You won't get that incremental credit added onto the scale here. It is an issue. Like we have a plan. We want certain things that will make this profession more attractive. For example, we want a PME reduced from 2 years to 1 year. Like 2 years is just simply too long at the minute. We are halving our potential supply of teachers in all subjects. It's also costing a huge amount of money. Like parents are really, really stretched. Like it's €17,000 to do a PME, and that's before accommodation. You could be out the guts of €30,000 a year to do a PME. Plus, if it was reduced from 2 to 1, that teacher comes out after year one, goes straight into a job, please God, with that where they may earn 40-odd thousand euro. Like it's saving them €50,000.
Now, just for the listeners, just remind us what a PME is.
A PME is a postgraduate master's in education.
Yeah.
It replaced what used to be the higher diploma, the HDIP.
Yeah. So the PME is the new HDIP, yeah.
It is.
Now, one of the not ironies, but one of the almost contradictions here is, on the one hand, we have a teacher shortage in many areas, including Donegal in the northwest. On the other hand, permanent posts are not being offered, and what the government is looking to do is to get temporary teachers in, and a teacher in Donegal could find themselves being shunted between Aaronmore, Moville and Bundoran with very little say in what's happening, and that's the problem.
Yeah, look, it is an issue. Like, to be fair, if you're the ETB, they have to fill their, they have to go where the needs are. There has to be a level of flexibility. It's not a case where you're simply bashing, those who run the schools. It's not that at all. Some schools have needs. Children in Torrey Island need to be taught. Children in Aaronmore Island need to be taught. Children all over Donegal need to be taught. But we, as a teaching union, our job is to look out for the pay and conditions of our members, and we want more permanent positions for them. We don't want them going many years without the hope of a permanent position, because what happens is they get disillusioned. They'll go, do you know what? Like as part of that survey, almost a third felt that they wouldn't be in the profession in 10 years' time. I would not like to see the teaching profession in Ireland become what it has become in England, whereby they cannot retain their teachers. They they're actually paying younger teachers almost as soon as they come out of their PGCE to stay in the profession. They give them so much money as an incentive to stay in the profession. And I don't want that here. I think we have a really, really good profession. We have teachers who take a great deal of pride in what they do and always have done. And I would like to see that maintained and improved upon if possible. And I think it is possible.
One of the warnings that's come out in recent days is that schools may now find themselves limited in the subjects they can offer, and someone who perhaps might have been able to choose a language or choose to do a myriad of subjects may find that choice limited by virtue of the fact that the school they're going to simply does not have the teaching staff to teach that subject.
That's possible, and it's probably already happening. You see in parts of Dublin, and I wouldn't say that it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibilities in Donegal either, whereby down the line, if you cannot get teachers for certain subjects, whether it be the languages or just say geography, history, whatever, like we're introducing new subjects as well, which as part of the new senior cycle reform, those new subjects are going to need teachers as well. If we cannot fill those positions, we are not doing the children and the parents, we're not giving them the service they deserve, the services that their taxes are paying for, and I would feel very strongly that, teaching is a job that deserves the maximum, because without education is the key to everything else that comes in a young person's life. And we have served our students, and we've served many of the parents of this country very, very well. And I don't think there's anybody that's arguing against this. It's just finding the mechanisms by which this can all be done. Like within the schools in Donegal, like some schools back in the day, I remember my old school, they used to share resources. I remember students who couldn't do honours maths in their school come up to a school to do honours maths, but their school offered chemistry or home economics, and those students went down there. But that takes organisation and timetabling. But you're still operating on a shoestring. And part of the 2009 austerity, teachers were expected to do a lot more with a hell of a lot less. And we're still fighting that fight now, even today, so many years later.
And there's still talk about people, like you hear teachers say from time to time, I'm doing my Croke Park hours, and there's been various agreements. And as you say, they would, I see the smile on the face. You know exactly what I mean when I say that.
In my role here, the amount of queries I get on Croke Park is just, and look, I'm not going to deny it. We hate them, because we were really hit. It was almost like, see those teachers, they're off so many months in the year. But then the people that say that to me in June or July or August, they never say it to me in January or February or March. The Croke Park hours were almost, I felt at the time, was like we had to give productivity. And we did. Like our parent-teacher meetings are after school, our staff meetings are after school. And that didn't even take into consideration the fact that teachers give so much outside of this classroom. Teachers take sports teams, dark mornings. Teachers give up their lunch times. And like my wife is an art teacher, and like you would look at the amount of work that they would do in terms of helping students with their projects. Like I know teachers have gone into school during their Easter holidays. I know that teachers give over and above, given evenings, given weekends. The initiatives like Junk Couture. Teachers give a hell of a lot, and I think if a teacher sat down and did an audit, maybe over the course of a teaching career, on what they did over and above, and they don't look for rewards from it. We have issues with posts. Like we had over 50% of teachers had a post before 2009. Now it's about a third. That has to change, and it's down the line, if you don't have post holders prepared to do it. We have a situation now where some post holders are giving up the posts. They're not, like, it's forget about the money. They just want a greater quality of life that doesn't involve doing a post. Which is giving up their time, because many of them have, like everybody else, people have families, people have priorities in their life. They like to be home with their kids in the evening, after a day's work, rather than maybe be still in the school to maybe 6 in the evening and then maybe travel home.
In terms of the recruitment, and it's hard to always sit down and identify one main issue, but it seems to me that one of the big issues, as far as you're concerned, is the path to permanency and the offer of a permanent post. Now, as you say, within ETBs in particular, there may be, and are there perhaps ways that the ETB can be imaginative and perhaps employ some teachers on the basis that they may be mobile and may go from school to school if necessary, but make a provision where that can be done on a permanent basis with travel expenses, etc., that it's not just done on a wing and a prayer. Are there ways for the TUI, ETBs and the department to sit down and figure out imaginative ways to allow the day-to-day problems to be resolved while also addressing the needs of teachers for permanency and for consistency?
Well, I think the ETV have always probably been doing it. To be fair to them, they have been. Teachers have sometimes worked between two schools and two schools. In fairness to them, where the travel has been doable, it's a credit to them that they're doing that. It's harder in community comprehensive schools because if I teach in Carndonna Community School, the nearest community comp to me is probably going to be maybe PCC in Falcara, unless you have a helicopter or a boat.
Yeah.
You're not going to get there. This voluntary secondary schools I mentioned, they do cooperate every now and again where the timetabling and the subject allows. It's more difficult to do that. It's probably years since my experience of it when I was at the college.
And I think it still does happen between St. Eunan's and Loretto in Letterkenny. It still does.
In my time,
I
anyway.
think it may still do for one or two classes now. I know it certainly did when my daughter was there. It happened.
I know it used to be,
she was there
used
too,
to be cooperation with chemistry, maths, home ec and stuff like that,
Yeah.
music, where it was possible. And look, sometimes that needs to happen. But in the ideal world, these schools would all have all of these facilities themselves. And I know in smaller schools, like you can't expect a small school to offer every single subject offer every single language. It's impossible to do it depending on the school. Now, some schools are excellent. They'll offer 2 and 3 languages. Most schools offer 2. But look, it's a logistical issue. It's one that the department, and particularly Deeper, because they control the purse strings. Everything has to go through them. Like we are looking for example, we want things like the Island Allowance brought back. We would love to see the Island Allowance brought back, teaching through Irish Allowance, SEN. We would like to see a lot of those allowances brought back for teachers who are working in those areas. Like I believe that it would be a fabulous thing. Like we've teachers going to Ironmore Island, and we have teachers in Tory. We have teachers working in the Gaeltacht. Like the area I represent is the whole of the west coast of Ireland. We have Connemara. Like you have the Aran Islands. Gaeltacht area is there. Those teachers, I think, deserve those allowances back. No question at all. They're providing a great service. They're keeping the language alive, as do the teachers who are teaching in the Gael School, and Gael Hollister all over the place. So look, we're all for those being reinstated, but look, it's all about getting circular letters from the minister, and this is an election year, and hopefully, we're going to get more. We're going to get more from her.
Are you confident or despondent with regards to the future? Because we know, even to this day, and we've had it already, people talk about 08, 09 and the cuts that came into place then, and they still haven't been restored. And it seems that we're now 16 years later, and they still speak of restoration, even to get back to where we were in 09. Are you confident that we'll be able to do that and then move forward in a way that addresses contemporary needs while also meeting the needs of teachers?
Well, I think we have to move forward anyway. There's no point in standing still and constantly looking backwards, because we'll not get anywhere. Like you mentioned the Croke Park hours to me, and I look, come here, they're the bane of everybody's life, and I'm probably, when I put this phone down now, I'm going to get teachers saying to me, what are you going to do with those Croke Park hours? If we want to get rid of Croke Park hours as teachers, we have to unwind every deal that we've done in terms of pay restoration and pay rises. So that's easier said than done. That could only end up being an issue to me if the country went off an economic cliff again, and then we're back to square one, and nobody wants to go there. I would imagine that, personally speaking, we're going to be pushing on with improving. We want to improve. Like we're going to say improve teacher pay, but we also want to improve teacher conditions. We want to improve student choice, parental choice, and all of that includes, improving the overall service. That means we get more posts, which means we get the allowances back to create levels of enthusiasm. We get the incremental credit back, so that those teachers who are coming, we want our teachers to come back from abroad and work in Ireland, but at the same time we can't have them coming home from maybe permanent jobs getting tax-free money, then to turn around and be maybe 4 or 5 years, because this is a big issue. They won't get a mortgage. They have to come back in Ireland. All right, if they come back with a lot of money and they can afford to pay cash, great, but if they need mortgages, banks are going to look and say, well, sorry, you don't have a secure employment there. We're going to turn you down for a mortgage. And like, I'm looking at Dublin, like this is where it's become national. What's to say down the line Letterkenny wouldn't continue to grow? Letterkenny might not become an easy place for a teacher to get a place to stay in or afford rent in the years to come either. You know, big towns everywhere are having the same issues. Dublin acutely so, but you know, I'm not saying that it wouldn't become the reality in Letterkenny. Letterkenny has not become a smaller place.
And defective blocks potentially complicating things even more in Donegal.
Well, I spoke on that last year at our Congress, and like, you nearly feel a sense of shame. I'm living up here in Glencar, and I'm lucky enough, I think, that my house isn't defective. Pretty sure it's not at this stage, it's up long enough. But if I look out the window out of my kitchen, I'm looking at the biggest potential building site in the county, up in towards the top of Glencar. And when those houses do start to come down, these people are going to have to somewhere to live. Like, that's not going to make the price of property go down. It's not going to. It's going to. Indeed, it's going to go the other way. And I know it's small potatoes, really, but we have teachers in those houses too, and it isn't just, you know, everybody deserves a house to live in. And I know TGI get a bit of grief at times because we're told that we're too political and we're, you know, we have very, very strong stances on Gaza and we have very strong stance on Micah housing and the rest of it, you know. But teaching is about people as much as it ever is about subjects. So I think down the line, you know, teaching as a profession, I'm very confident. I have a daughter who's decided that she wants to go into it, and she's made a very firm decision. She's doing a PME now, starting in September. You know, I believe it's very strongly it's a very worthwhile profession to go into, and I would promote it. You know, because at the end of the day, if we don't have good teachers, you know, the future will not be as bright, and that is my very strong view in it.
And that, I think, is a really good place to leave it. Joseph Higgins, TUI, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Donal. Take care.
Joseph. Take care. Bye-bye.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from €40,000 to €600,000 with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
Have I got news for you? The Harvey's Point Cabaret is back. Every Wednesday in September and October, Eamon has gathered a galaxy of stars to captivate and entertain. A scrumptious dinner, fabulous entertainment, or a 2-night accommodation package. Harvey's Point Cabaret, 074 972 2208 for an immediate reservation or harveyspoint.com.
Do you suffer from high cholesterol, menopause symptoms, digestive issues, anxiety, aches and pains, or a lack of energy? The highly trained team at The Natural Way Letterkenny can provide advice on natural remedies for a number of individual health issues. The Natural Way also has its own brand of herbal treatments to help fight fatigue, relieve digestive discomfort, maintain a healthy immune system, and alleviate common menopause symptoms. The Natural Way at Letterkenny Shopping Centre, your one-stop health shop.
Hi, Paddy here at Shane Conley Cars in Donegal Town. Are you looking to upgrade your car? With Shane Conley Cars, you'll find makes and models for every budget. Great finance options, and we also accept trade-ins. Check out ShaneConleyCars.com or call in to us at Shane Conley Cars from Lonaher Road, Donegal Town.
Highland Radio weather updates with McElhinney's. Support local at McElhinney's. With 53 years experience in fashion, beauty and home, we're here for you. Plus, enjoy M-Card rewards when you shop in-store at McElhinney's Ballybuffet.
And looking at the weather forecast, and Met Éireann tell us that it'll be largely dry with sunny spells today. Top temperatures 17 to 22. Moderate to fresh southwesterly winds in the morning, easing light to moderate. Early tonight, dry with clear spells. Cloud increasing overnight, bringing scattered rain or drizzle. Some mist patches forming as well. Lowest overnight temperatures 12 to 14. Moderate to fresh and gusty southerly winds will develop. Tomorrow morning, it'll be cloudy and breezy with outbreaks of rain or drizzle. The rain clearing eastwards in the early afternoon, followed by dry weather and sunny spells. Top temperatures 16 to 21. Warmest in the east with moderate to fresh and gusty southerly winds, easing and becoming west-northwest. Now, I'm joined on the line by James Daly, who is from County Meath. James, good morning.
How are you doing, Donal? Is it Donal Kavanagh?
It is indeed, Donal. Great to talk to you, James. Now, you are a veteran of the Air Corps, and you joined the Air Corps along with a man from Donegal with whom you've lost contact, and you're trying to re-establish contact. Tell us the story.
That's exactly right. Well, there were 38 of us from all over the country, every part of Ireland practically. In 1964, the 10th of September 1964, we joined the apprentice school in Baldonald. And we did our apprenticeship there, and then we moved, as they called it, up camp. We went to different departments and that sort of thing. But around about 1970, we started to leave. So there were people going abroad, there were people going to Aer Lingus, there were people going to British Airways. Some of them went to Germany, some went contracting. So basically, we all sort of went our own. We were all young lads, so we were only 16, 17 in 1964. But in any case, there was a few attempts made over the years to try and get them together for a reunion. And finally, one of the lads, Nicholas Gay, he took it by the scruff of the neck and there early on in the year in January, and he says, look, I'm going to try and find these lads, because on the 10th of September coming up, it's the 60th anniversary of the day we joined the Air Corps in Baldonald.
And there is one person in Donegal you haven't yet been able to contact.
There is three people altogether that we have lost contact with, that we are not able to contact with. Unfortunately, 15 of that class has passed away. And we have 17 definite people who are coming to the reunion, but we're missing 3. Now, one of them is Mick Ellis. He was from Dublin, and the other was Tom Fitzgerald. He was down Tipperary way, and the other was Sean McIntyre. Now, there was also another chap, Eddie Dalton, who was also from Donegal. Now, unfortunately, that chap passed away some time ago. But Sean McIntyre, he left the Air Corps. I'm not actually sure how many years he did in the Air Corps, because I left in 1970, so I only spent 6 years in the Air Corps. I had to buy myself out, and at that time you signed on for 9 years, but because they train you and all that sort of stuff, you either have to do the 9 years to give back service to them, or you can buy yourself out.
We understand Sean worked for a while with Aer Lingus in the 80s and 90s.
Sean went to Aer Lingus, and I'm not actually quite sure. It would have been probably around 2000. It could be 99, 97, 98, 99, 2000. He did say to me, I was in Aer Lingus myself, and he did say to me that he was leaving. He was going up to some company. Now, I assumed this company would be in Derry, because basically they were going to build a hangar to paint aeroplanes. Now, basically, there isn't any place in Donegal where you would land jet aeroplanes for spraying them. Now, he would be a part of a management team, or would certainly be in planning in that particular job. So I don't actually know where this place is, but now, of course, he would be, I'm 77, I was one of the oldest of the class. He would be around 76. I think he was a bit younger than me.
Right.
So he would be retired. I assume he went back to Donegal and is retired in Donegal. So if there was anyone who might know Sean McIntyre, we actually called him Johnny as well, Johnny McIntyre, but Sean McIntyre was his name, and retired in Donegal, any of his siblings, or maybe some of his family.
Well, we will certainly, we'll put the call out there, James. So we're looking for Sean McIntyre, also known as Johnny McIntyre, joined the Air Corps in 1964. We know that Sean did work for Aer Lingus up to around about the 99-2000, and then he came back to the Northwest, we understand, to manage a company that was painting airplanes. So if anyone knows Sean, or indeed if Sean himself is listening, we'd love to hear from you, and we'll put Sean in contact with you, James. Listen, we wish you all the best with it, and hopefully we'll be successful, and we'll have some news for you before too long. But in the meantime, James, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us, and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you very much indeed.
It is our pleasure, James. So Sean McIntyre, if you're out there, or if anyone knows Sean, joined the Air Corps in 64, 60th reunion coming up next week, and Sean's mates want to get in touch. Going to take a short break. Headlines after these.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, with monster loans available up to €60,000 for all occasions. Visit letterkennycu.ie.
You know that guy I've been seeing?
Yeah?
Turns out my sister's been seeing him too.
Oh, really?
And I heard he's been seeing Siobhan at number 56. And Declan.
Your brother?
Yep.
Specsavers opticians and audiologists own their stores, so your care is their business, which can make them rather popular.
I've got something to tell you. I've got half an hour with him this afternoon.
Specsavers, your care is our business.
I've just had the Eclipse Cinemas experience. Wow, they truly have taken a night at the movies to a whole new level. Amazing recliner chairs, director's lounge VIP rooms, pizza and hot food served to your seat. Have a glass of wine and enjoy the film on the big screen. Try it for yourself at Eclipse Cinemas Bundoran and Lifford Strabane, where the stars shine brighter. By the way, the pizzas are amazing. You can book your seat anytime at eclipsecinemas.ie.
Are you planning a night out or an overdue catch-up with friends? Visit Sister Sarah's in Letterkenny for a top-class gastropub experience. Enjoy Grill Night Thursdays, Sarah's all-you-can-eat barbecue on Fridays, live sport, weekend music and private function rooms for your special occasions. Sister Sarah's Letterkenny, serving food you'll love from Wednesday through to Sunday.
This is the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio, heading into the final hour of the programme. But before we do anything else, let's take the headlines and say good morning to Donna Marie Doherty.
Thanks, Donal. Good morning. The Mayor of Derry City and Strabane District Council says parents of children involved in rioting need to be held accountable. 10 police officers were injured during disorder on Nailers Row when petrol bombs, fireworks and heavy masonry were thrown at them. Alarm has been raised at how young some of the participants were. Mayor Councillor Lillian Sinwabar have asked where were their parents. A man is due in court this afternoon, charged in connection with an investigation into online threats against Taoiseach Simon Harris. The man, aged in his 40s, was arrested yesterday morning and was held in a Garda station in the northwest. He's set to appear before Galway District Court this afternoon. A Donegal heritage site is taking part in a collaboration between the Office of Public Works and Transport for Ireland to promote sustainable travel this National Heritage Week. The projects will see free admission granted to 12 sites, including Donegal Castle, to those who use the local link bus service to travel to the attraction. The initiative will run from Monday the 19th until Friday the 23rd of August. Funding for sport in Ireland is expected to top €500 million in advance of the next Olympic Games. The government will announce an additional €400 million in the coming weeks following the success of Team Ireland in Paris. It comes after the Irish Olympic Committee expressed concerns that other countries may try to poach our coaching staff. Ulster Bank customers with outstanding credit card debts have had their debts written off. The bank, which closed its operations last year, informed its remaining credit card customers with outstanding balances that their accounts would be refunded. It says the process will have no negative impact on the credit ratings of the affected customers. And finally, around 700 homes and businesses have had their power restored following adverse weather last night. ESB network crews are working to restore all power to customers in areas impacted by lightning-related outages. Full details can be found on the ESB PowerCheck website. Meanwhile, the power outage caused a water supply disruption to Carrigart, Glen, Downings and Cranford areas. Crews are working to have that restored as quickly as possible. However, it may take up to 3 to 4 hours after the restoration works are complete for supplies to fully return. That's all for now from Highland Radio News. Back again at noon.
Thank you, Ireland. We're bringing it back. On average, we're now returning over 2.5 million plastic bottles and cans every day. And since launch on February 1st, we've brought back over 150 million drinks containers to deposit return points nationwide. Deposit return ensures we value our resources, recycle more efficiently, and it helps us work towards achieving our EU recycling targets. Return for less litter, less waste, and better recycling for Ireland. Visit return.ie for more.
And welcome back to the 9 till noon show. Now, it is time to go to Zoom because we're going to say good morning to Brendan Devaney and preview tonight's DL debate. Brendan, good morning.
Good morning, Donal.
Now, we've had the inter-county season pretty much wrapped up and that's all done and dusted, but we now come into the local championships and the local leagues, and this is where, for the clubs and the parishes right around the county, this is where it starts getting very interesting.
Yeah, that's it, Don. It's all about championship, as we know. I suppose with a split season now, there was to be, more respect given to the club championship in terms of its time, and you had different teams running through the All Ireland series and that, and there was a lot of, I suppose, debate on how to get things right. So we have this split season now. We're in the championship. It has left league football a bit of a strange competition. I think it's very much warm up stuff. There used to be a bit more about the leagues now. There's an odd team, obviously, maybe he's gone up a division, wants to hold their own in that. But by and large, everybody's just waiting for the championship. So it was the start of the first of the round games. There's obviously a draw of two, a home and away game. That's how it kicks off. I don't know, so a lot of teams looking to win that first home game. That was a big part of it in the senior, intermediate and junior, and of course ladies football as well. At the weekend had championship right across the board as well. So a lot happening.
Joined in studio by Oisin Kelly, well known to everyone here, Brendan Kilcoyne, Ryan Ferry of the Donegal News as well. A heavy-hitting panel for what's going to be a very interesting discussion, I suspect.
No, you're talking, Donal. Yeah, a lot of experience in the room there, definitely. Listen, yeah, Oisin's going to be in this week, which is great to have him there. Pádraig Calvert will be in quite a few weeks now, coming up as well. But Oisin's going to be there this week there, and he was out and about. Of course, he was at the Unions game at the weekend doing commentary himself, and Brendan Kilcoyne and that, and some good performances in there at the weekend. A lot of home teams coming through. Big for you to get your home victory done, particularly, that first game. There's a lot made of it, and McCool's coming through against Ardra. Four Masters with a big victory over Gweedore. Of course, Gweedore just in the league final recently and last year's county final as well. So, there's Four Masters been building momentum the last couple of years. Brilliant underage teams. We were wondering how long it will take to come through, and of course it's only the first game. Gweedore, of course, lost the first game last year away to Airline and still made the county final. So big one for Dunlow away to Glenfin. St Michael's beating Killybegs at home. Say Airua accounted for Downings, and St Knowles were beaten by Glenswilly. Michael Murphy still rolling back the years there for them, and big one for champions Niamh Connell away at Cloughaneely. So yeah, listen, the teams that didn't win now, Donald, pressure's on for the second game, and everyone that came through this weekend with a victory, it takes a bit of pressure off them in the senior ranks and the intermediate as well. A couple of big derby games. Milford got the better of Fanad, and Narasa beating Nivora. Narasa coming up from junior. So yeah, some big games in the intermediate. Terman racking up a big score as well against Niamh Columba. So yeah, a lot of stuff happening there. Raymond McGee's Buncrana as well had a good victory over the Gales in the intermediate. So yeah, interesting stuff happening across the board though.
But way too early to be making any predictions as to how the championship's going to pan out over the coming weeks. I mean, as you say, some of the heavy hitters perhaps facing initial defeats, but one thing is almost assured: they're going to be bouncing back, and they're not going to take this lying down.
That's it. First game can be strange, though. No more than like ourselves, St. Unions going in. You're just not like you have a fair idea what's happening, but until you see game time, it's always a wee bit of a question mark. Just how you're going to acquit yourself, and of course, the way the champions lay it out, you've got opportunities to come back. So no one game will define you until you get into the knockout stages. So yeah, a lot of assessing to be done. Few teams had a few weeks layoff in that. Could be a bit rusty, lots of injuries you're seeing across teams out there too, fellas coming back and getting back into that. So listen, people are question marking the championship. Are there too many teams in it, particularly in the senior? You look probably. Listen, I was obviously at the St Unions game at the weekend. Not much of a crowd there. I'm just wondering, are people, because of the format of it, waiting for the crunch games? If you like, championships about crunch. So while you're trying to find the balance of it, you have this kind of build up to the crunch championship. So, it doesn't really feel like, I think, Donal, until you get there. But listen, we're teasing it out. We're trying to get the right formula. But I think there's possibly too many teams in the senior and too many games.
And the DL debate on tonight, and also the DL debate's going to be there every Monday right through the whole process. So I mean, people can track how things are going right through the coming weeks. DL debate's going to be on top of everything. Did you get a chance to watch any of the Camogie yesterday? I presume you didn't get to see too much live if you were at the Unions game, but did you get to watch the Sunday game afterwards?
Do you know, I just seen reports on it there. It looked fantastic. I was listening to bits and pieces of radio. I was going up and down to Gweedore, actually. That's where I was, hitting the beach. I made the most of it. You probably can't see this hat. I have a big red face on me. What, do you know one of the ones where you hit the beach, Donal, and you're like, that evening, you're like, how come I wasn't applying a bit of cream?
Yeah.
but no, I've seen the reports on the camogie there. Listen, it looked brilliant.
Yeah, there's a few comments in this morning. A lot of people thinking that Cork were lucky and Galway was a bit hard done by, with suggestions of a few fouls, and maybe one of the Cork goals was thrown in. And I've no doubt that's going to be discussed again in the future. But Brendan, DL debate, as we said, it's on tonight. It's yourself, Oisin, Brendan Kilcoyle, Ryan Ferry, discussing what happened over the weekend, looking ahead, I'm sure, to the future, and also looking at other GAA news across the board. You had a fairly short summer break, but hey, back with a vengeance.
That's it, Donal. Yeah, we had a wee bank holiday weekend off. That was about the height of it. We're back at it. But listen, it's great, Donal. Listen, it's something you love. You know, it's not really anything ever that is tasking on. You know, we love the game of football. And we love promoting the GA, and say that's why it's called the debate. We love hearing points of view on it, and we'll certainly hear them this evening.
Yep, absolutely. Brendan Devaney, in the meantime, thank you very much indeed. It's on directly after the 7 o'clock news tonight. The DL debate with Brendan and his panel. Always essential listening for anyone with an interest in sport. Now, I want to take a comment. Caller says, can I please say how insulting Donal Kavanagh's reply to that parent's genuine concern around his daughter not getting any playing time at her local club was? Now, if I insulted anyone, I absolutely apologise. That was not my intention. Donal made a joke out of the parents' concern that they took time to contact the show. And was Donal implying this parent's daughter was useless? No, Donal was not in any way implying anyone is useless. Donal told his own story, which was when Donal was growing up and Donal was playing sport, Donal was useless, which he was, and that was the absolute truth. I put forward, I discussed the fact that coaches have two priorities. The coaches are trying to bring players through on a team, but coaches also want to play the best team they can because they want their club to progress. I certainly wasn't making any discussion or any impugning of anyone. Girls stopping playing sport is a major issue in the early teens, hence why it's advertised nationally, and this issue the parent has highlighted is a major contributor due to clubs having inappropriate coaches only concerned with playing people that they want to play. Would Donal state the coach picks players to win matches if full player participation is the rule and non-competitive? I see the point that you're making. They're saying girls will never develop in any sport if they're not given the opportunity. This is a major issue in both soccer and Gaelic, and in the case of Gaelic, moving clubs isn't an option, but clubs need to ensure that they have coaches who are coaching for the girls' development. Perhaps Donal should ask how many other parents have similar concerns and parents who have daughters no longer playing for clubs due to these practices. I certainly will ask that question, and I stand absolutely corrected if the point I made was an inappropriate one. I certainly did not mean to insult anyone, and if I did, I unreservedly apologise, and I take it back. That's all I can say. Now, a few other comments that I want to make. We were speaking earlier on to Joseph Higgins with regards to teachers and the TUI. Caller says, every year from the middle of August to September, teachers realise holidays are up and they have to go back to work. Reality sets in and they complain. I'm sick of teachers. The sick leave of teachers is shocking. They're off for weeks on end. The government needs to be firm and make sure that teachers are working from 9 until 5:30. Teachers must correct their work. Sub-teachers are often unqualified students who are not qualified in education. Now, teachers will tell you that they do work many, many hours and that they go well beyond their recruited hours. That's what they will say to you. Caller says, and this is a comment, in relation to the current protests in Belfast with the contingent from the south, a terrible scorn on the whole island, but there appears to be different agendas in the melting pot. If you look at the interview with the person from the working class, Sandy Rowe, you see 35 years of historic bigoted agenda that's always been evident in areas like this, resurfacing once more in relation to immigrants. In relation to the southern contingent, homelessness, health, education issues are all 100% reasons to have created real unrest. Neither economy can function without immigration of good, honest, decent people making a better life for themselves. Here sometimes I wonder, is it a hangover from the crash, the bailout that maybe should have been protested more at? Now it feels like a second bailout is creating phoenixes out of the ashes of the crash. There are those that feel this is an economy for the few, and that Micheál Martin, previously sitting at the crash cabinet table, is not smirking with them but at them. All I will say to that caller, and I can see the point you're making, Now, what I would suggest that if you're saying there is a traditional antipathy toward Catholics in a loyalist area like Sandy Row, there is an argument that says what's happening in Coolock at the moment is an identical situation. It's just the blame is shifting. That the reason areas like Sandy Row and areas like Tigers Bay in Belfast and other loyalist enclaves, the problem is, and by the way, the same holds in Catholic areas where there is antipathy toward Protestants. And it's exactly the same thing. And it's this, that in an area like that, there is homelessness, there is unemployment, there is economic deprivation, there are social problems, and the problem is it gets blamed on the other community. So the fact that traditionally in a loyalist area where there's an antipathy toward Catholics, part of the reason there is that antipathy toward Catholics is that they are blaming Catholics for the situation that they're in. And conversely, Catholics in a nationalist area are blaming Protestants for the economic situation they're in. If you listen to people like Eamon McCann and people like that, Eamon McCann would always have argued that the communities in the Falls and Shankill had far more in common than the communities in, shall we say, the Malone Road and the more affluent areas. And the Protestants in an area like Tigers Bay or Sandy Row had much more in common with nationalists in the Falls than they had with their rich co-religionists on the Malone Road or wherever. That was always something argued by Eamon McCann. In areas like that in Northern Ireland, traditionally the blame went on the opposite religion. In Coolock, the blame for the exact same sort of conditions is going on immigrants. So the issue is, it's basically, it's what's happening now in Belfast is the shift of blame is changing, but the underlying problems in Sandy Row are the same as the underlying problems in Coolock. And what happens is blame gets cast. And what's now happening is that blame is being cast in the direction of immigrants and people seeking international protection. So I think they're probably two far more similar situations than they may appear at first glance. It's just that traditionally a religion was the cause for blame within Northern Ireland. But it is arguable that the underlying situation, the economic deprivation, etc., in Sandy Row is going to be the same as the economic deprivation in Coolock. And the question isn't whether or not the area is deprived. The question is where the local community is casting blame. And I think that's the issue. 17 minutes past 11, going to take a short break. Back in a moment when we're going to be advising you that tonight you should be watching the skies.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio. The 9 till Noon Show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union, offering low-rate car loans with fast approval. Apply online at letterkennycu.ie or in office today.
TFI Local Link operates evening and weekend services throughout rural Ireland to help you stay connected 7 days a week. We know life doesn't just happen 9 to 5, so if you're commuting, shopping, visiting family, or going out in the evenings or on the weekends, let TFI Local Link take you there. Visit transportforireland.ie.
Did you know that M&S school uniform is durable, responsible, hand-me-downable?
Why?
Because that's what kids need.
Why?
Because sometimes things can get messy.
Why?
Because paint, puddles, ketchup.
Why?
Because school happens. M&S uniforms. Shop in-store and online at marksandspencer.ie.
Why?
The Rent-A-Room Relief Scheme is currently available, and you could earn up to €14,000 a year tax-free by renting rooms in your home to students. This scheme is open to everyone, and it won't affect your payments if you're in receipt of social welfare support. Find out more at gov.ie/room for a student, an initiative of the Government of Ireland.
Pedio thread lifts and skin boosters, which rejuvenate the skin by improving facial contours, lifting and tightening the jowls, neck, cheeks and eyebrows, are available at Genesis Aesthetics and Skincare Clinic, Gweedore. To choose the right aesthetic treatment for you, contact Mary Ferry, your aesthetic practitioner. Also offering fat-dissolving treatments, dermal fillers and laser treatments for all skin conditions. Hair and makeup packages also available. Genesis Aesthetics and Skincare Clinic, Gweedore. 07495 325 75.
Shekelatha ama Highland Radio. Arna Dortugad ag Airgrid. Uproar agus forbor an go letrahas na Héireann. Airgrid. Pobal a guachtu, éire a guachtu. Tá sé?
Agus inis tá sé fiche nóméid Theresa Haindig. And if I got that wrong, I apologise profusely. It's said 20 past 11. Now, joined on Zoom by David Moore from Astronomy Ireland. And David's going to speak to us about what promises to be a very interesting phenomenon in our skies tonight. The Perseid meteor shower, and I hope I've pronounced that right, David, have I?
Perseid? Yes,
Perseid.
indeed.
Excellent. Well, that's good. I'm glad about that. 20 times more shooting stars in the sky for the next 2 nights, thanks to this phenomenon. It promises to be really, really spectacular.
Absolutely, yeah. And this shower itself is known for producing very bright, very fast meteors because we're traveling around the sun at about 67,000 miles an hour. And these particles left over by a comet, they're about the size of a grain of sand, are heading towards us at a similar speed. So the closing speed is of the order of 130,000 miles an hour. And at that speed, something even as small as a grain of sand, when it hits the air 100 kilometers up, will produce a meteor, a fiery streak that can be seen over the entire island simultaneously. And if we get any bigger particles, say one the size of a pea, that would light up Ireland like daylight for 1 or 2 seconds. I've seen that happen with the Perseid, so a real spectacular celestial fireworks display.
Looking at the weather forecast as given to us for this region by Meteor, tonight we're told it'll be dry with clear spells early on, but as the night goes on, cloud will increase, bringing some scattered rain or drizzle. So hopefully there's a chance that we'll see some of it at least tonight. Once it goes dark now, it doesn't really get dark yet until about sort of 9:30, 9:45. So from 10 o'clock onwards, hopefully there'll be sufficient clear spells. I mean, how much will cloud, obviously cloud's going to affect our chances of seeing this. The clearer the better, isn't it?
Yeah, clear spells, well, I'll take that because the clouds themselves are typically 1 or 2 kilometers up, but the meteors hit the atmosphere about 100 kilometers up, and they don't penetrate down too deep. So even people in high-flying jet aircraft are quite safe. The Earth's atmosphere stops these things dead in their tracks in a fraction of a second. So if there are just clear patches, then look in the clear patches because they can happen anywhere in the sky. They're called Perseids because they appear to point back to the constellation of Perseus, which is over in the northeast. But you can see them on the opposite side of the sky to that. It's just they will point back to the northeast. So in Ireland, typically we have problems with the weather. For instance, they would have been quite strong last night, and we had all those thunderstorms. It's as if it knew there was a meteor shower coming. And there's also a huge display of the northern lights going on right now. And it was on last night as well, and we saw nothing of it because of the weather. But, and if it's cloudy, don't give up. There's always a chance a clear spell will come along. Typical Irish weather.
What is it that's causing this phenomenon to the extent that we can predict to within almost an hour when it's going to start, when it's going to be visible? Is it just atmospheric conditions at the moment? Because it comes and goes on a quasi-regular basis. What is the predictor that allows us say it's going to be tonight?
Yeah, well, the meteors are caused by these bits of dust that have fallen off a comet. Its name is Swift-Tuttle, and it was last near the sun in 1992. I remember seeing it myself. It needed a telescope to see it well. And that goes around the sun every 130 years. But it's probably been around the sun hundreds or maybe even thousands of times, and it's now scattered dust all around its orbit. So although the comet's long gone, won't be back for another century, the dust is what we plow through when we get to this point in our orbit. So we'd always get to the same point in space on the same date, roughly, each year. So August 11th, 12th, we'll always get the Perseids. That's when we're closest to the comet's orbit, and we plow through the dust cloud that's invisible otherwise, that it left behind it. And there's another big meteor shower in December called the Geminids. And the same thing happens. It'll always happen at the same month. So we can predict the meteor showers pretty accurately. The weather is not so easy.
And as you said, you did see the Swift-Tuttle comet because you had a telescope. The wonderful thing about the Perseids is they're very visible with the naked eye. You don't need, obviously, if you have a telescope, if you have binoculars, by all means use them, but you don't need them. You will see them with the naked eye standing in your garden, hopefully.
No, in fact, leave the binoculars and telescopes indoors because they'll only see a tiny part of the sky, much better than your eyes will. These meteors can streak across nearly all the sky on some occasions, and certainly a good chunk of it, more than a pair of binoculars would pick up. So human eyesight is all you need. And that's why if people go to our website, you can see we're asking people to count how many meteors they see every 15 minutes. That has real scientific value. We'll be publishing a big report in the magazine. So if you go to astronomy.ie, you'll see the Perseid page. It'll tell you, I'll give you an example. The counts are very easy. Tell us where you were, 11 to 11:15, saw 27 meteors. Simple as that. And if you watch another 15 minutes and stay up even till dawn, just one line for each 15-minute period, and you've got a fantastic piece of citizen science. So we'd really encourage people to get involved in that. The magazine's aimed at the general public, kids and families. So it's non-technical reports that we're looking for. And during all that watching, you'll probably see some of those huge fireballs. The front cover of our magazine, I think it was 2 years ago now, had an amazing one when a photographer just happened to be pointing his camera at the right place at the right time. This fireball that I actually saw light up the sky from behind me. I didn't turn around quick enough to see it, but he got a brilliant photograph of it.
And as we say, hopefully we are getting clear spells in the earlier part of the night at least, and it'll get a bit murkier as the night goes on. But hopefully, as you say, there'll be enough clear weather, if not in the northwest, certainly down the country. I'm sure you and your colleagues will be out in force on high ground in the Wicklow Hills or Dublin Mountains or wherever to try and get the best view possible.
Yeah, well, we want people all over the 32 counties, from Donegal to Kerry, to be out there watching it. Someone's bound to get a clear sky. It always happens, especially when we have things like eclipses and other events that happen at a very specific time. This meteor shower not only happening tonight, we expect about 20 times more shooting stars than normal tonight. But we'll get half that tomorrow night, which is 10 times more, good show, and half that, 5 times more, on Wednesday night.
Yeah.
So you've got several nights where you're going to see a lot more meteors this week than normal. And we want people to send in their counts, because it's only the general public counting these that tells us this one in August, the one in December, are the strongest meteor showers, and they can vary by maybe 50% year to year. So we don't know whether this is going to be exceptionally good or one of the slightly poorer performances, hopefully the former. And there's lots more happening in the sky as well at dawn. If that aurora doesn't last till the morning, well, at least you can see a double planet of Mars and Jupiter all this week. And next month, there's going to be an eclipse. October has a huge comet coming. November has Venus in evening skies. And December has Mars in the sky, along with the Christmas star that we're expecting. So we always pack the pages of Astronomy Ireland with things to see. And there's a big barbecue at the end of the month as well. If people want to look through giant telescopes, we'll point them for them. You'll see details on the website.
Right. David Moore, thank you very much indeed. That's the annual Perseid Char. It's tonight and tomorrow night and into Wednesday night as well, although the law of decreasing returns does apply in this one. Hopefully we'll get sufficient clear skies to get some really good sights. But David, for the moment, thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.
And it's always our pleasure to speak to you as well. That's David Moore there from Astronomy Ireland. Now, let's look at a few of your comments. In fact, no, before we do comments, let's do the quiz. Give the quiz a final rattle on the programme this morning, because this is Heritage Week from today until the 16th of August. And on the show today, we have 2 family heritage cards valued at €90 each to give away. The cards offer free access for one family with 2 adults and up to 5 children over 12 to over 45 OPW managed heritage sites across the country. You can visit any or all the attractions as often as you like during the validity period of the card. heritageweek.ie for all details. To win, simply answer the following clue, and we're looking for the name of a heritage site in Donegal. High above Burt, this fort has found fame, as dramatic as the theatre that also bears its name. High above Burt, this fort has found fame, as dramatic as the theatre that also bears its name. Please text or WhatsApp your answer, name and address to 086 60 20 5000. And before the show is over, we'll be able to bring you the results of that particular quiz marking Heritage Week. Now, also just want to mention that due to the filming of a TV project, Hat Trick Productions have been granted 2 road closures this week near Clonmany. At the Meteor Gap Grotto on Wednesday 14th and Friday 16th of August from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and on Thursday on the Clonmany to Tonduff Road from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So Memorgap Grotto on Wednesday and Friday, and Clonmany to Tunduff Road on Thursday. Roads closed there from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and that is to facilitate a project which is filming in that particular area. Going to take a short break. Back in a moment for a discussion about social housing in the Glenties electoral area.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union. Simplify your debts with a debt consolidation loan from Letterkenny Credit Union. Call us on 074 910 2126 or apply online via our app or in office today.
Darren knows these roads. He knows every turn, every tree, every person's house. He knows when he wants to put his foot down. But here's something he doesn't know. He doesn't know that Jim is searching for his phone and has taken his eye off the road, just around the corner ahead. Darren doesn't know this, but they're both about to find out very quickly. Even if you know the road, you don't know what's coming. Say no to speeding. A message from the Road Safety Authority. Visit rsa.ie.
The hunt is on for Ireland's new local hero. Irish Music Month is on independent radio across Ireland this September. It's simple. If you make original music, we want to hear from you. Play live on air, get expert mentoring, win 10k in support, have your song released by a label, and enjoy airplay across 21 local radio stations. For details on how to enter, go to highlandradio.com or stay listening to Highland Radio. Independent Music Month. Irish radio supporting Irish artists with IBI and Hot Press, supported by Commission on Sound and Vision Scheme, funded by the television licence fee.
It's a day of great street entertainment at the Letterkenny Busking Festival. On Saturday, the 17th of August, enjoy musicians, singers and other entertainers performing all along the main street. Letterkenny Town Centre, alive with music at the 9th Annual Busking Festival, the Saturday, the 17th of August. See Letterkenny Busking Festival on Facebook for details.
Attention all football clubs in the Donegal League and the Inishowen Football League. Are you looking for quality match and training balls, training equipment, poles and markers? Do you need new water bottles? Let's get a new kit and some quarter zips for match day. We know what you need at the right price with the best advice. Click bmcsports.ie or call Brian McCormick Sports 074 91 27833.
Into the final 28 minutes of the 9 till noon show today. Just before we go for a quick discussion on social housing, just a few comments. A lot of engagement on the issue of children not getting their game with local sports clubs. Caller says, is this still going on? Same when our son was at Gaelic and soccer too. He eventually left. Very sad for the young people. Another caller says that this issue was raised on Letterkenny Babies recently, and hundreds of parents had similar issues with local clubs in Donegal. Caller says Putin's been alleging all along that NATO and the US were out to cancel Russia and that they've been trying to do this secretly for many years. Within the past few days, the Ukrainian army, supplied with heavy NATO and US weapons, have invaded Russia and are threatening to take control of a Russian nuclear plant. So what might I be missing? Who's telling the truth? Another caller says, all of the money that went to Ukraine was to defend Ukraine from Russia. Now Zelensky has moved into Russia. We paid for defense, not offense. What is going on? Ukrainians will argue that this is part ultimately of a defensive move and that they have no wish to take over parts of Russia, but they are questions that are being raised. Now, let's go to the Glenties electoral area and specifically to the Dolman Centre and Conal Shovlin, who's there. Always good to talk to you, Conal. Good morning.
Good morning, Donal.
Conal, we're talking about social housing, and in particular you believe that in smaller areas like the Glenties local electoral area, municipal district, there is a need for a different model of housing than perhaps is used in Letterkenny. And one of the things that the council and government need to do is start looking at being imaginative as to what to do in those smaller areas.
Yeah, well, in the past, in the 70s and 80s, there was a lot of once-off houses built by the council, you know, on farmers' land and that. For a farmer might have been in need of housing, or some neighbour might have been in need of housing, and they bought a site and they built a house there. But that's sort of over now, you know. But we looked at 18 months ago at the Dolman Centre, because a lot of communities say that a community centre nearly should be there before a housing scheme, you know. So we looked at a site just 5 minutes from the Dolman Centre, very good site. and for a small project, maybe 6 or 8 houses. And we approached a lot of the housing trusts, the larger housing trusts, but they're really concentrating on the bigger centres of population, and they deal more with maybe 20 to 30 houses. And then there's the other aspect of it. There's a lot of situations where the council tender out for turnkey projects for social housing. But the problem is in areas like here where you're building 6 or 8 houses, I mean, you have smaller contractors maybe that they would need about 2 million of working capital to face into a project like that, even for 6 houses over maybe 18 months or 2 years. And then you take the interest then of 100,000 on top of that, and buying the site and getting planning. So these smaller contractors, are prohibited from that type of, because if they were borrowing money, they would be paying 7 or 8% for it, but the council borrow money at 1.5% on the government balance sheet. So it's a model I think that the council need to look at for smaller rural areas that they're just proactive in building the 4 or 6
effectively
houses,
then, effectively, are you saying that the council and the developers should get together and the council should effectively pre-fund the developers so that the job gets done? Because there is potentially one issue there I can see from the council's point of view, and I'm just going to put this to you. The council could well be worried that if they start front loading and paying up front for developments, do we get into a situation where suddenly it becomes a blank check and the costs rise, and the council finds itself pumping in more and more and more money?
No, I mean, why should that happen? I mean, if the big developers that have access to a lot of working capital and all that can do them projects, and they can do turnkey, and the housing trusts have access to the money too from the Department of Environment and the council for doing all that. But you're not going to get big operators coming into small rural areas like here, so, I mean, if you look at the school here, I mean, there was 140 at the school 25 years ago, and there's 62 at it today. You need young people in the area,
Yep, absolutely.
And they're not going to, the jobs are not here to get big loans and all that, so you have to be imaginative with the people that are looking for the houses and the community and say, what can we all put in place to make this thing work? And I mean, if you have facilities like a good community centre and a church and a pub, and you have a good beach 5 minutes away, and and people want to live there, but it's not possible now. We've been at it a year and a half now, looking at housing trust, and we've met them about coming here. But these projects they're not big enough, and they're far away from bigger centres of population. And then bigger developers that are doing turnkey jobs are not going to look at small projects like that. So
have you had discussions directly with the council with regards to what might
possibly be done? Look, I'm involved in community development this last 55 years, so I'm kind of torturing people all the time, about how maybe we can do things and come out with a successful conclusion. But now I believe that in a case like this where you say smaller, you have to sure younger contractors coming along too in areas like rural areas, but they cannot possibly finance something like that without the assistance of the council. Because again, I mean, if the council are borrowing money at 1.5% and a small developer is borrowing at 7 or 8, it can't be done. And they're going to have 2 years interest before they even get started. Then they have to buy the site and they have to go for planning. Whereas the council would have a lot of in-house things, like they would view a site and they would look at the planning, and it would be joined up thinking for them to do smaller projects, because I don't think they'll be done in small areas like here unless something like that is done.
At the risk of sounding pedantic, it stops being a turnkey project, though, doesn't it, as soon as the council is putting in money up front? Because the idea of turnkey is Donegal County Council reaches an agreement with a developer that you will provide, we'll say for the sake of argument, 20 houses, and we will pay you, to pluck a figure off the top of my head, we will pay you €3 million. And those figures could be further out than Fanad Lighthouse, but I'll just use those figures as indicative figures. So the council says to the developer, you deliver us 20 houses, we'll give you €3 million, and the houses are developed, the houses are finished, the money is handed over, and the council, as the name suggests, the council takes the keys and passes them on to tenants. That's the theory of how that system works. If you're coming into a situation where the council and smaller developers are working together with the council pre-funding a project that's going to be done by the developer, you're then moving into a different thing where the council and the developer are in partnership. Now, maybe there is an argument that says that's absolutely what we need to be getting into.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not looking. You're not. What you're doing is, as coroner's work's going on, you are paying for that work on a quantity surveyor's bill of estimate. Yeah. So there's nobody out anything, and there's nobody. I mean, when we built the Dolman Centre 26 years ago, I mean, we had to spend money before we got the grants in for what we were doing, and with the bank in Ardra that time, the Ulster Bank was very good in providing us sort of was the working capital that the grants would flow on then. But it's a different world now out there. I mean, you don't have banks now doing that type of thing, because the bank manager had total discretion that time of working with a local person doing that. Mm-hmm. And you don't have that anymore. And, I mean, if you have a contractor, say, and they're doing their work, and it's examined at different times, that there's so much money spent now, and the money then goes to the contractor as he's doing the work. I mean, I don't see why that... There's nobody out anything, and if it's an overall contract that starts off, like it's. But as I say,
is
I
there
think
scope
these
for
projects
the
won't be done in
government?
small communities.
Yeah. Is there potentially scope then for the government to provide the loans? At
well, the government and the
1.1%?
council work together.
The government and the council provide the loans to the.
Borrow it,
but that obviously, obviously you can only do that in a situation where there's an absolute cast iron guarantee that the houses, when finished, are going to become social housing. Because if that were done once, and then those houses went on to the general market for sale, then there'd be all sorts of potential issues about other developers who had to pay 7% on the mortgage for their private developments would be claiming that, it was unfair competition, and, you're going down potentially a number of very complicated roads with that. So there would have to be guarantees on price, guarantees on cost, and guarantees on the ultimate fate of the houses, that they would go into public use as rental properties administered by the council. And if a formula can be found to do that, then it may well be the future.
You're not going to build any houses unless you have a demand, an applicant there that wants a house, and the community works with that applicant and the council works with that applicant. There has to be an element of trust in the whole thing, if people want the houses. But I mean, as I got back to my original point, in the 70s and 80s, you go all over the whole of County Donegal. There are individual houses built by the council on farmers' land, and even at times the council bought the site of a farmer to build a house for somebody that had no land. But that is not happening anymore. So if you're looking at small rural communities like ours, then you have to come up with a new sort of template as to how it can be done. Not like Letterkenny or Donegal Town, where they're growing, and big developers can come in there and do that, whether it's housing trusts or whether they're turnkey projects. So you have to have something different for small rural communities that's located all over Donegal, where you maybe have a church and a pub and a community centre at a crossroads, and people want to live there.
Yeah, well, we know that Donegal County Council is having monthly special meetings to discuss housing, and it's certainly an issue I'm sure would be put on the agenda, and it certainly is food for thought. I'm conscious that there are a number of issues, and I know indeed there are at least two instances that I can think of at the moment where there are ongoing discussions between the council and developers and voluntary housing organisations about projects which are complete but are not in use as of yet, because there are issues over costs and issues over money, and there are various issues, and I can think of at least two situations in the county where that's an issue, and that's why I'm saying that for such a scheme like this to work, it would have to be based very much on cast iron guarantees and deals between the council, the government, voluntary housing agencies and the developer, and we would have to find a formula that makes sure that the issues that are being experienced in a few other places, are not experienced into the future.
But if you think of all the negatives, you'll end up doing nothing. You won't get out of bed in the morning.
Absolutely. But the best way to
you have to learn from the past. You have to learn from the past and work around something that appears sensible and practical. I mean, the site that we were offered, for instance, it's a wonderful site at a very cheap price.
Yeah.
And it's just 2 minutes from the Dolman Centre and 5 minutes from Yarn Beach. And as I said, it was a school going down from 142 to 62. If you hadn't young people coming there, and if they can't afford to build a house, then you have to provide an alternative. Whatever system that is, and I'm not saying if it's turnkey jobs or if it's a housing trust coming in, it's just that in the past 18 months to 2 years that I've spent talking and ringing and cajoling people to see what a housing trust come in there. But I've given up on it, and after 2 years, my years are kind of valuable now, as you get older. So, I mean, but this is what I'm on, saying that we need a different template for these small rural communities to work to build houses. And it has to be interacting with the community, with the people that want them, with everybody being involved in it,
Well, what I would love to see, Conal, what I would love to see is for you to be invited to one of those special meetings of Donegal County Council and make a presentation to that effect, either to Glenties Municipal District, but actually, even bypass the MD. Go straight to one of the special housing meetings in Lifford and make a presentation. I would love to see that happen, because maybe what needs to happen at those special council meetings is for people like yourself to come in with those fresh ideas and present them, because I mean, this needs to be heard obviously by those in the corridors of power who understand better than me, certainly, how this thing works.
You might think maybe me on the radio to you, my ideas are crazy, but I think there's a big.
I do not think they're crazy
Kennedy
for
Airport
one
in New
moment.
York.
Yeah.
A big thing written in Kennedy Airport, New York, for the former John F. Kennedy said, "Don't ask are my ideas crazy. Ask are they crazy enough."
Yeah. Back in the days when there was an airfield called Idlewild, if I recall correctly.
Yeah. I mean, we get stuck on conventional things all the time. We're afraid to move. We shouldn't be afraid to move if we think that's a good move, maybe,
Yeah.
But sometimes rules and regulations are written, and they're written, and we're afraid then to drift anyway from that. Because at the end of the day, we're all dealing with people and humanity. At the end of the day, it's an all-inclusive thing, and that's why I'm on the radio trying to see can something be put in place just for a small community that progresses into the future.
As I say, Conal, it is certainly an interesting one, and I would absolutely, as I say, it would be really good to have a presentation to that effect made to Donegal County Council. But as you say, there is a contradiction that if the investor goes to borrow, it's 7%. And if the council is borrowing for public housing, it's 1.1%. So, I mean, if that gap can be bridged, we'd be a long way down the road towards perhaps making it more attractive.
Yeah. But I think that's not good. I don't think that doesn't happen if you go to the banks now. Say a small contractor goes to the banks and he has that idea of doing that, and very conscientious, and he's trying to build up his business.
Yeah.
I mean, 7 or 8% is, and 2 years then 100,000 of interest on top of that, and buy the site and go for planning. It's not viable in small communities, and that's why I'm saying we want a different model.
Well, that's perhaps another thing as well. Is there's a lot of talk about reviewing the planning process and improving the planning process. And I listened to a national podcast featuring a former minister, Ivan Yates, and this is one thing he's talking about an awful lot. Is that one of the biggest constrictions and constraints to housing developments at this moment is the planning situation, and that should be streamlined and made a lot easier, because it's almost...
Well, also for small projects like that, the council have in-house planning, I mean, they have in-house, they can do it in-house without putting the pressure on some small developers. It's the risk of putting in a costly planning application,
And they do it through Part 8
so
or whatever.
It's joined up thinking, really, it's joined up thinking from everybody's point of view.
More cooperation between the council and the contractors. Let's see where this goes, Conal.
Yeah, and the other thing is that contractors are getting scarce, and you have to nurture new younger contractors to come into the field.
Absolutely.
And you have to, models of housing that fits them.
Yeah. Certainly food for thought, Conal. Thanks for speaking to us, and we'll be looking
for
with interest
time.
to see where it goes. Conal, thank you. That's Conal Shovlin there speaking to us from the Dolman Centre in Nyarenport New, and that's Conal's basic point that it's getting harder and harder to get turnkey developments in a small area like that, and as he said, with the numbers going to the local school almost halved in the past couple of years, and that's a situation we're seeing replicated right across Donegal. So certainly food for thought. It's an interesting one. Going to take a short break. Back after these.
The 9 till noon show is brought to you by Letterkenny Credit Union. Digital loans now available. Apply online or via our app today and get your loan transferred directly to your current account.
Get ahead of back to school this year at Dunnes Stores. From prepping for their very first day to refreshing their uniform, now's the perfect time to shop schoolwear for the adventures ahead. Pick up a 3-pack of playproof polos from just €5 and knitted school jumpers from just €3.75. Stock up on essentials like Easy Care joggers from just €5 and sweatshirts from €3.75. Back to school at Dunnes Stores for little ones with big schedules. Shop in-store and online now. Terms and conditions apply.
Atlantic Travel. Bonded, licensed and trusted in Ireland. Expert advice on your world adventure. search for sun, cities, or a last-minute escape to sandy shores. Get away this summer with tantalising offers, luxury resorts and family favourites. Free kids places still available. The offers won't last forever, but the memories will. Book now with a trusted travel agent. Atlantic Travel, Letterkenny.
Why leave the magic moments and great scenes you've captured sitting on your phone when you can have them printed at McGee's Chemist? Using McGee's website or one of their in-store kiosks, you just upload your photos, select the ones you want and have them printed instantly within an hour, or use the 24-hour service. 35mm and film from disposable cameras also printed, and old photos can be digitally restored. Hold your memories in your hand with McGee's Chemist, Letterkenny.
Highland Radio weather updates brought to you by McElhinney's. Support a local Donegal business with McElhinney's. From fashion to home essentials, find everything you need for any occasion. Shop McElhinney's Ballybuffet for quality you can trust.
Heavy showers and thunderstorms clearing away to the northeast later this morning. That'll leave a largely dry day with sunny spells. Top temperature 17 to 22 degrees Celsius. Moderate to fresh southwesterly winds in the morning. Easing light to moderate early tonight. Dry with clear spells. Cloud increasing overnight, bringing scattered rain or drizzle. Some mist patches forming as well in lowest temperatures of 12 to 14 degrees Celsius. Moderate to fresh and gusty southerly winds developing. Tomorrow morning cloudy and breezy with outbreaks of rain or drizzle. That rain clearing eastwards in the early afternoon, followed by dry weather and sunny spells. Top temperature 16 to 21, warmest in the east, moderate to fresh gusty south winds, easing and becoming west-northwest, and that's the weather forecast. Now, I'm sure, like me, many of you were watching the closing ceremony from the Olympics last night in the Stade de France in Paris, and delighted to say that I can now speak to Teresa McDade, who is the manager of the Irish athletics team at the Olympic Games in Paris. They've just arrived in Dublin, looking forward to a big event at the GPO in just under an hour. So, Teresa, great to talk to you and welcome home.
Thank you very much, and very glad to be home, I have to say.
Teresa, people talking that this was the most successful Olympics for Ireland ever. And I mean, when it comes to the athletics team that you are the manager of, perhaps the greatest compliment you can pay that team is if 10 years ago an Irish team were to get into a 4x400 metre relay, or an Irish athlete were to get into the 400 metre final and came fourth, we would be declaring days off and we would say it was the greatest thing ever. The fact that that's been achieved and people are almost disappointed says so much about where the team has come, where Rashida Adeleke and her compatriots in the relay team have come, and where athletics are now. I mean, there's punching above your weight and there's punching above your weight. I mean, in fairness, those five girls, let's not forget Kelly, who did a great job in the semis. Those five girls did such an amazing job. I'm in awe. And I think most of the country are.
Well, they absolutely, and so are we. We're so proud of them, and they literally ran out of their skins. And as you say, that's exactly where we are at. We are disappointed. And we know that we are there and we are in that category and we're looked at. And it was devastating. And such an evening, and everybody was upset, and it was very high emotional, particularly after the 4x4. And again, the next day, there was certainly, it took us a little while to sort of kind of come around. I think the next morning, although we had Fionnuala McCormick in the marathon, so we had a little reprieve from a staffing point of view. But yes, exactly. Like it's world class, and again, if you look at the age of those girls, like they're all very, very young, and they're such ambassadors for athletics and for sport and for youth in general.
And they didn't just break the Irish national record. They decimated, tore it up, and just rewrote the history book. Because, I mean, I heard a statistic on national radio yesterday, and they were saying that the Irish record has gone from something like 326 to 319 in the space of just a year, or not long, more
even in months.
Yeah,
and like for in Rome, like, which was only just so recently, the girls had to up their game by 2 seconds almost to actually medal and from their record that they had done 3 weeks previously in the World Relays, and they've come out and done the same again. And you know, it just augurs so well for what's coming. The splits that everybody looks at for each girl, I just can't wait to see what they're actually going to do individually. When they come out to run again individually, and then when every individual is running very, very well, the team looks after itself. So yeah, I think we'll have an exciting next 4-year cycle ahead of us.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we can. And again, you take the likes of Rashida, you take the likes of, don't forget Ciara McGeehan, unfortunately got injured. Ciara McGeehan was fourth in Budapest in the World Championships last year. So, and again, from, the overall Team Ireland have done amazingly well. And again, our stats are all up. We have more finalists, we have more top 16, more top 24 than Tokyo. So whilst there's a bittersweet, I suppose, is the best way to say it. We are, of course, disappointed and want more, but yet we're extremely proud, and we are moving along nicely in the long-term process of it all.
A lot of talk from the politicians about increased funding for sport and for Olympics in particular, talk of up to 500 million being provided over the next 4 years. In terms of the funding, it's vital that continues, that the elite athletes get the support that they need to continue developing. You'll be watching very carefully, I'm sure, how that funding is dispersed and organised over the coming
of course,
months.
yes. Yeah. And I think that's the thing, in terms we have a strategic plan. And there's things we really want to do. There's things we know that if we could do them, that will improve. It'll make that difference between where we are now and just getting that across the line. So, and I do think it's amazing as well. The whole country is behind us and behind athletics particularly. And I'm looking forward to some positive news at the next announcement in terms of funding.
Teresa, enjoy the homecoming, and I hope the athletes do. It should be an absolutely fantastic day and a fantastic few days, and no one deserves it more than yourselves and the team. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. They're just literally walking out here now, so you're having it live here now from Dublin Airport. They're literally walking out onto the crowd, so fantastic. Thanks
I'm sure
very
they're
much.
getting the reception they deserve. Thank you. That's Teresa McDade, the manager of the Irish athletics team, a native of this fair county, and it's great to hear all that. Now, the Heritage Week quiz, Heritage Week next week, and we've been giving away family passes from the OPW, and our winners today are Dultach Bonner, Ashley Close in Letterkenny, and also Rosemary Gallagher in Drumkeen, both among the many people who correctly identified the location of our little cryptic clue. High above Bort, this fort has found fame as dramatic as the theatre that also bears its name. The theatre, of course, on Greenon in Letterkenny. And the answer is the Greenon of Alia. And congratulations to the winners. Just one or two comments before we go. A man applied to build houses on board Planola, objected to him twice after a neighbour objected. A neighbour didn't want him to make money. How do people expect houses if people are always objecting? And caller says loyalists have also always cozied up to the English racist elements such as the National Front, who were anti-Irish civil rights, BNP, etc. The political right, including the Irish blue shirts, have been traditionalist, etc. Loyalist areas have also always been racist, as sectarianism is a form of racism. Also, loyalist areas are where the cheaper empty houses are located. So Catholics, knowing those areas, avoid them, whilst non-nationals not aware of how those areas operate, being policed by paramilitaries, are moving into the areas. Some are even Catholic Poles. The deprivation of these areas, the lack of the sectarian appointed work, and extremely poor local and national leadership based on an orange ideology that is sectarian and an anti-culture based on reaction to Catholicism has created this hotbed of riotous reaction to housing non-nationalists fleeing war, famine, etc., often controlled by paramilitaries and drug dealers who want to keep control of places like Sandy Row, Tigers Bay, etc. So says a caller, and thank you very much indeed for your comment. And that's it from the 9 till noon show. It's been a pleasure presenting for the day today. John Breslin is up next around the Northwest. Thank you very much indeed to Shannon, and especially to Caroline, who produced. And most importantly, thank you to all our participants, all our guests, and thank you to you for listening. For myself, Donal Kavanagh, have a great day.
The 9 till noon show with Letterkenny Credit Union, now offering mortgages from €40,000 to €600,000 with no hidden fees or transaction charges. Letterkenny Credit Union, 9102127.
If you're pregnant, daily exercise is good for you and your baby. Try to fit in activities like walking, swimming or yoga when you can, and your partner and friends can help you by exercising with you. Visit mychild.ie